Cool. Darius. You say Darius. What do you say? Darius.
I say Darius, but whatever. I like. She has a cool accent, so she can get away with it.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, man. What's your name again?
My name's Greg.
Greg. That's right. Nice
Some
to meet
people call me Greg Carlson.
you. All right. Cool.
We just call you Gregory. Hello, Gregory.
Gregory.
Snap. Yeah, there you go. All right, cool. So, hey, man, thanks so much again for coming by.
Yeah.
We're fired up. We're about to send it. We're going to get down to business and talk about you.
Cool.
Your life and how you got to be where you are today.
Awesome.
To hopefully inspire those that might not have somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. You're in you're North Central Austin right now.
That's right.
How long you been here?
I moved here 7 years ago. 7 years ago. So, yeah, 7. There you go.
It's a number.
Yeah, 2017 is when I moved here.
Where'd you move from?
Bay Area, California.
The Bay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. What was that like?
Living in the Bay?
There, yeah.
It was cool.
Did you grow up there?
I grew up in Southern California.
So cool. Okay. Awesome. So the way we like to frame this, I talked a little bit about this before we kicked off recording, is we want to get a very vivid picture of what your day-to-day looks like.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing right now, and why are you doing it?
Okay.
Yeah. So what does it look like? You wake up.
Oh,
boom,
now.
You get after it. Yeah. What do you do?
Well, I mean, my day right now is not my life right now is not a normal representation of my like what I would if I was to design my life. I would not design it the way it is right now.
Mm.
So I'm in a season right now of grinding, and which is I have a new business. So
You're in the building phase.
I'm in the building phase of my newest business.
Can you tell us the name of that business?
Yeah, it's called Rise Growth Partners.
Yeah.
So it's a private equity business where we invest in wealth management firms.
What has you doing that?
What do you mean? How do you mean?
Why pick that out of all the things you can choose?
Oh, I mean, I wanted to do that. So
What's the draw?
Yeah, I decided, probably 8 years ago that I wanted to get into private equity. I always wanted to buy companies and help them grow, but I didn't want to be the operator because I spent a long time, my whole career was around helping build companies that were my businesses. And then 8 years ago, I'm like, I think I'd be pretty good at buying companies and helping them do better. But I was running my business at a pretty big mortgage company then. I was running that business and got out of that business a couple of years later. And then it's kind of a long story, but I ended up in 2022, in summer of 22, I was in Oaxaca, Mexico, and I was like, yeah, I'm in. I'm going to go start a private equity business. And so I was exploring a lot of different options in that area. And I got approached by one of my oldest friends from San Francisco. And he said, hey, I think there's an opportunity in that space where we essentially make investments in wealth management firms and help them grow. And without getting too technical, I saw a lot of correlate. I'd been looking at spaces like home services and software as a service, like all these different sectors that were not from my background. My background, financial services, mortgage, and that's not a very good space to do private equity in. So
I wouldn't know, but that is good to know.
Yeah. So I was kind of building a criteria on like a decision matrix and like, hey, if I'm going to go do it, it's got to check certain boxes, and I just was trying to figure it out. And the wealth management space, little did I know, is like one of the hottest spaces in private equity. It's arguably like outside of like AI or something like that. Which is venture. It is one of the hottest spaces. Like tons of people want to be in that space, and I didn't know that, but I understand now why. It was the same thing that drew me to it. And so he came to me and said, hey, I have this idea where we can invest in wealth management firms, but help them grow to become much bigger. And so I started looking into it. I'm like, oh yeah, man, this checks a lot of boxes. And then, so we launched that business, which is now called Rise Growth Partners, in January, startup. I'm like, okay, we got to go raise money. I'd never raised money before. I always bootstrap my companies. I'd never allocated capital before, and I was new to the wealth management space. So so by the way, like if you're a listener and you're trying to start something new, like I just gave you 3 good reasons why you should not do something. Yeah. Like if you're new to it, like you don't know what you're doing and you don't have experience, you don't have a background. But I'm not new to business, and I know a lot of people. So I went out, I'm like, I'm just going to socialize the idea. I'm just going to like talk to...
What does that look like, to socialize the idea?
I talk to any single person who I respect their opinion and or has experience in the space, or has experience in private equity, or knows someone who has experience in those areas. So I was just trying to talk to as many people as I could that could give me a valuable opinion about my idea, or that might invest. And I got a lot of good feedback. And
how'd you find them?
I mean, I've been around the block, so I know a lot of people. It was either friends or friends.
Organic network.
Yeah, I have a pretty good network. I mean, Kayleigh's seen that. I have a good network, and I worked my network. I mean, I leveraged at that point. So this is 2022. I leveraged a 20-year network. I built up a lot of social capital over those 20 years in business, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go use it right now. And I've done that one or two other times, but that's one of the important parts of building a network is you can use it in that way.
Was it all part of your plan?
No, I had no plan.
No. Was networking a part of your plan?
No, I'm just good at it. I like doing it.
It just comes naturally to you.
Yeah, I just like to meet people, and I like to help people, and I like to create value. And so, like I'm a natural networker. It's something I do like without trying, which is valuable for this. Yeah. But I had a lot of business experience, and in business I had a lot of relevant experience I could translate into this new thing I was doing. But I got a lot of good feedback, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to raise $20 million, which might sound like a lot of money, but the way you get paid when you are an investor is you get paid a percentage of the amount you raise every year. And it's called like in private equity, it's called a 2 and 20 model. So you get 2% management fee on what you raise per year, and then you get 20% of what you make above and beyond what they invest. So let's say someone gives you $20 million, you'll get 2% on that. Right. So quick math is that's $400,000 a year.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I'm 46 years old right now, and I have a team. You're not going to do a lot with $400,000 a year. You sure as hell aren't going to support yourself unless, I get
what you're saying.
Maybe you will if you don't live that extravagantly. I probably could, but we had a team. I have to pay for that, and that's outside of paying the business. I'm like, oh man, that's not a lot of money. So you start to understand that raising $20 million isn't going to pay a lot of bills. And so I was like, well, fuck it. And so it's a good way to start. And I'm a person. I had a coach that I hired. Who's a kind of a famous guy. He coached a famous Austin person named Lance Armstrong. He was his coach on 9 Tour de France's. And this guy coached 40 world champions. And he was Bono's coach, and he was Richard Branson's coach, and he was my coach.
How did you get a hold of him?
I hit him up on LinkedIn and asked him if he wanted to talk.
Like that? He said yes.
Yeah.
One attempt?
First attempt.
Wow. Nice.
Now, but this goes back to networking.
Yeah.
So the way what happened was during COVID. So Dr. Jeff Spencer he's one of my coaches. He like everybody during COVID, you're kind of stuck in your house. And at that point, I had sold my business. So I was like, not only was I stuck in my house, I had nothing to do.
What was the name of that business that you sold?
That was called the Money Source.
Money Source. That was the business number one.
No. I got asked by this woman who's a professor at UT to teach a class on entrepreneurism. And I had never counted how many businesses I'd started. So it came out, I went all the way back. I'm like, okay, I got to count and so business was anything that I tried to sell to make money when no one was paying me a salary to do it.
Yeah.
And I excluded commission only jobs because I didn't own the business. And I didn't realize because I'd just never done the math. And because I've been doing these types of stuff since I was a kid. And I started my first company when I was 19. And I'm 46 now. I turned 46 a couple weeks ago. But I'd realized I'd started 22 companies. And so that was probably company number 19 because I've started a couple of businesses since I left.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's really funny because I did a matrix, success, yes or no. And there was success was if I made $1 of profit, it was successful. And I think out of those 22, I want to say 12 of them, or it was half or it was less than half, were successful.
How many people that you've met throughout your career have taken a similar approach where they've kind of thrown businesses on the wall and then, whatever sticks, you go with?
Yeah, I've never, I don't know.
Basically, who do you know else that's had 22 businesses or close to?
I don't know.
No, right?
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
Most of the people I know, they do one thing, they stick with it. I'm just not good at that. And so yeah, I don't know. Where were we? That was so I'm sitting there and I'm like, and I've gotten very involved in entrepreneurial communities over my lifetime, and I was chairman of this program at MIT called Gathering of Titans, which is like this really cool entrepreneurial program.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And there's some amazing people in that program. Like one of my buddies in the program is the CEO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And he's now in Canada. They have Shark Tank here. They have a thing called the Dragon's Den in Canada. Yeah, he's their newest dragon. Whoa. So like
that's cool.
Yeah, totally. His name is Brian Scudamore. I love him. He's in one of my buds. And so like guys like Brian are in that program. So like really good people, like really like accomplished people. And so I was the chairman of the program. And so I had to build a speaking group to come speak to the group, because that's what we do. We meet once a year. We bring in all these awesome speakers. And so I was listening. You guys know Jim Quick?
Yes. He's the guy that helps you remember your dreams.
Yeah. So I'm listening to Jim Quick's podcast. He's interviewing Jeff. And it's like 4 a.m, like in March of 2020. And I'm like bored. And I was like, oh, and I'm like, I want to meet this guy. So I was like, fuck it. And I just like hit him up on LinkedIn and he responded.
Jim or the other one?
Jeff.
Oh, Jeff.
Jeff. Yeah.
I've hit a world-class coach.
Yeah. I've hit up Jim a bunch of times. He hasn't responded to me yet. They all respond sooner or later. And so there's a note that when we're talking about my life, there's a quote I just learned from a guy that I met at MIT a few weeks ago, which was, one of the greatest collections you should have in life is collecting no's. To collect as many no's as you possibly can. Yeah. So I was like, I love collecting no's. I collect them all the time.
That's boss.
That's good. Yeah. Collecting no's, man. Yeah. And he was really funny. He like called up a pizza, like he's in the middle of like doing a talk in front of all this. And he goes, here, hand me your phone. He's like, hey, what city are we in? And we're in Dedham, the residential campus at MIT. It's in Dedham, Massachusetts. And he's like, or Dedham, Google pizza store, calls a pizza place and he orders a pizza. And he says, hey, I don't have any money. We guys just bring it anyway. And the woman like didn't know how to respond.
Yeah.
And then she puts him on hold. And then she gets the manager on the phone. The manager's like, hey, can I help you? I was like, hey, I'm here at the MIT Endicott House, a big group of people. We'd love if you could send over some pizzas. And, can you send them over without us paying? And he was just like proving that like you can ask people anything you want. No,
that's a good lesson.
No, they didn't do it. But later on that night, one of the guys, we had an event and he ordered like 20 pizzas. And he said, hey, could you mind throwing in an extra 5 pizzas for free? And they did. Yeah. Just because he just asked, So
that's good.
So I've realized that's come very natural for me. I've asked for lots of things in my life, and I just do it without regard. I'm like if anyone can ask, why not?
What is your human design?
What does that mean?
So it's a test that you do. It's
like Enneagram or something like that.
I'm close to that. It's to one of those. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I'll have to send you a link. I'd love to know if you're a manifesting generator.
I think I'm for sure.
Yeah.
Like I mean, even the story right now about my private equity business is full blown manifestation.
It is insane.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, like screw it. So one of the feedback I got, and there's a guy here in Austin who I'm not gonna say his name, but he's like a fucking badass in the world of venture capitalism, and he has a couple $1 billion of venture funds that he's built essentially from the ground up.
It's not Jean Paul, is it?
No, okay. You all know who he is.
Okay.
But people who know who he is know who he is.
Yep.
And he's my friend. And so I'm like, and I'm like, if I'm gonna ask anyone their advice on like how to raise money, I'm gonna ask him. He's like, he's raised a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he's like, look, Darius, at this point, it's not about proof of concept. It's about, and this is I'll never forget this. He says it's around proof of principle. I'm like, well, what does that mean? He's like, it's around proof of you. You're just proving that you can do it. So whoever gives you money, they're like, it can be the smallest check. Like, just show that you can do anything with it, and then you'll go ask for more money. And I was like, oh, I never thought of it that way. It was just like my brain exploded. I'm like, all right, well then, because I was like, oh, I got to raise $100 million because I can't live off $400,000. Like, that's not really viable. Like, and that's not enough. It's not. And they always say you got to raise more money. If you raise too small money, you'll go out of business. And I was like tripping out about that. And so this proof of principle concept came up, and I was like, screw it. I'm just gonna go like, I'll raise $10 million, whatever. And so I quickly raised about $12 million. And we had a couple deals under in our pipeline that we had a bunch of deals, but we had one deal under LOI. This is around April last year.
Yeah.
So I get a deal under LOI. I got about $12 million of commitments. And I'm like, all right, I could do a deal. And I'll take a step back. So I wrote a book called The Core Value Equation that I published in 2020, which is how do you build a company that's like essentially operationalizing core values in a company. And
We'll define that, operationalizing core values of the company.
yeah, like how do you make core values come to life in a business? How do you make it a core values? The thesis of the book is how do you create core values of my belief is core values have the opportunity to become the language of accountability in our lives and in our businesses. But how do you design them to do that? They have to be designed to do that. So I believe it's a design exercise.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And so you can do it personally, you do it professionally, you do it anywhere. Anytime you're trying to make it happen, they have to be designed for it to happen. And so I wrote this book in 2019, and I went to go publish it, and I was like, all right, I got to go launch my book. And so I have a friend in one of my CEO groups, and like I said, I spent a long time building this like massive platform, and like for no reason, but to like learn of people who were my friends who were like, I poured into them and they poured into me, and I just built goodwill. So I hit him up and I said, hey, I'm doing this book launch. He's like, oh, you got to meet my buddy Joe. And I was like, all right, that's cool. Like, he's like, yeah, he just sold his company to Goldman Sachs for $800 million. And I was like, cool. Like, that's interesting. Like, that's like, obviously he's a cool guy. Like maybe he's like, no, he's like the best, Darius. You're going to love him. And so so I get on a call with Joe, and my friend Matt's like, Joe, tell him about how you do it. He's written through 3 books, 2 New York Times bestsellers. Like, tell him about your book launches. You just did a book and you published it and we got on TV everywhere. And so Joe's this Zimbabwean guy. I told you about him. And I'm going to do my bad Zimbabwe accent in a little bit, but
Rhodesia. It
was Zimbabwe when he lives there. He's 56, so it was Zimbabwe when he grew up there. But and so he so anyway, 30-minute conversation. I text him a couple times, never responds. I was like, all right, whatever. Like, seemed like a cool guy. Like, it was cool. He gave me some feedback about book launch. Again, you're seeing a theme here. I always ask for feedback, right? I always want feedback. I want to like know how people did things I want to do. So I have this belief, I'm going to say this, that like if any, like, and this does not hold true in every capacity of life, but I do believe in business it completely holds true, which is if someone else can do it, I can do it. Like, I just believe that. Like, there's no limit.
Right.
Now, could I go and build a competitor to like ChatGPT? Probably not. Like, I'm not technically smart enough. I can probably go find people that would be smart enough, but I really don't understand technology well enough to be that would be not a great fit for me. But I believe like I could build $1 billion company. Why? I don't know. Because other people have. Like, if one person can do it, I can do it. Like that. And I've had this belief literally since I was like a little kid. I was like, it was a gift God gave me. I was like, hey man, like people talk about having imposter syndrome, and I'm like, I literally don't have. I don't even know what it feels like. Yeah. Like, I walk into a room, I'm like, yeah, I belong here. Yeah. And they're like, I've only experienced imposter syndrome once, and it was when I met Elon Musk, and it was because I didn't know what to say. Right. And what do you say to? Like, it was him, his brother Kimball, the 2 creators of the TV show Westworld, my buddy who is he was the agent for the Westworld people, and me. And we're in a room like this, and like literally where Kayleigh is, where Elon's at.
Did you were you starstruck, or was
No. I don't. I'm never starstruck because I'm like, there's just another human. Like, I don't that doesn't exist for me. I'm like, why would I be starstruck? They're just a person. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, and you probably have the mindset that it's only a matter of time for you to get to that point.
No. I probably did it when I was younger. Now I don't believe that there is a point.
There's no point.
There is no point. Like, that doesn't. Their point is a fake. That's a lie.
Oh, okay.
Like, there's no like they're there. There is no there.
Like, yeah, it's even better.
Yeah, because I mean, the way you learn that is by doing it and going there, and then then you're like, oh, this doesn't feel like
nothing changes.
Like nothing's different.
Yeah,
and then you're like, oh, that must be the next there, and then you go to the next there, and you're like, wait a fucking second, this is the same as the last one. And then you go to another there, and it took me a couple really big ones where I was like, all right, this is fucked up. Like, I've went to a couple big theirs. I built a $200 million company. I thought like, oh, this is like, shit's going to change. I sold the business. I'm like, shit's going to change. Yeah. And then it didn't. I was like, oh, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Yeah. And then I had this full realization that that's all bullshit. That means nothing. Like, the question is like what happens in the next 10 seconds is what matters. And are you maximizing the moment? And are you doing maximizations of 1 10-second moment after the next to like live an awesome life? Mm-hmm. And there is no like, oh, I'm going to get to where he's at one day. I would never want to do that. Fucking guy does. Like, like Elon Musk's life looks miserable to me. Like he was doing cool stuff as far as creating cool stuff. That part I think is cool. But the way he's getting there, have you guys read his book?
No.
Go read his book. I read his book and I was like, oh, yuck. I don't want to do that. He's got like 10 kids, like barely sees them. Like, that doesn't sound cool. Doesn't sound like a great life.
Yeah.
Seems like
Lonely life. Missing the point a little bit.
Yeah, listen, he's the richest dude on earth, whatever that means. I mean, like, at a certain point, like, what are you going to buy that's so cool? Like, yeah. I lived a long part of my life believing that mattered, and until I realized it's a total bullshit.
Yeah. So no wrong answer, no specific way to answer this either. What would you say is the point?
Oh, I think the point is to really maximize your existence. Like there's a guy built.
In which way?
I think that we're given the moments in our life to like maximize our existence within the moments. And so I think that we are given, I'm a believer in God, and some people may not believe that, but I'm a big believer in God. And I'm like, look, I think our purpose on earth is to live our talents, maximize our talents to create value in the most profound way that we can, given the talents we have, that we can then optimize those talents and make them bigger and better to then create more value in the world. And then how do you take that and do that every 10 seconds, every day,
nonstop,
to then create more cool shit?
Right.
Like, that's the point. And you can do it. And then how do you do that to affect people, to like truly show up for people so that they can do it too? And like, for me, I'm clear on that. Like, as long as I'm doing that, I'm good. Whatever someone else is doing, cool, good for them. Like, I don't compare myself against other people at all. It's like zero. And by the way, I was the opposite of that. Like, it took a lot for me a lot of pain for me to realize that. Because there's a quote I love, which is compare despair. And I was a compare despair person for a long time. But now I'm not.
When you say a lot of pain, what specifically comes to mind?
Oh, I mean,
throughout your growth journey.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, tons of stuff, tons. I mean, it's a really, you're asking me a 40 plus year story, right? So,
specifically to realizing that, money or whatever isn't all it.
It took me hitting a certain level professionally and financially where any normal human would look at that and be like, dude, that guy is killing it. And for me to feel like I was sucked.
Mm-hmm. So you just had a realization one day.
I was just like, hey, like I was 44 and I was in Mexico. I was in Oaxaca, Mexico. I went there for a month and I was like, I wasn't doing it. It was in between. I'd sold my business in 2020. I sold my ownership of my business then. I had exit. It was a pretty successful exit. I'd done pretty well the previous 10 years. I was in a position where I was like, kind of can do whatever I want, more or less. Like I mean, it's not like crazy stuff, but like I don't really have to do anything if I don't want to.
Yeah.
I have a lot of options, and so I was kind of taking my time because I'm a creator, and you asked if I'm a manifester, and I'm a person that's I feel the urge to create and build stuff, and at that point I had built a management consulting business, literally from like zero to it was like and just me and a couple assistants to like couple $1 million a year in revenue in like 8 weeks, like that. And so I had this cool little business, and I had been running a $200 million company that I had built prior to that. So like, if I was sitting there, I'm like, this is the worst, and I suck. I can't believe I'm running this small little company, that like is like 80% profit margins. like I'm not even grateful for that, right? And I was like hustling and starting a mastermind, and I had about 12 companies in that mastermind, and I was coaching 12 CEOs, and I was at my podcast, which was growing a lot. And I was sitting there like unhappy, and I'm like, I'm taking a month off and I'm going to go to Oaxaca. Like I always had a business where I had to be in the States, and this is in summer 22. And I'm like, I'm going to go to Mexico for the summer with my family, get the hell out of Austin, which is hot here. Right. And Oaxaca is cool because it's the worst. But Oaxaca is like mile high. It's like Denver. So you're like, it's beautiful. It's like really, it's a cultural center of Mexico. I got married there, so it holds a special place in my wife's heart. So I go there, and I'm so anxious, and like I'm just beating myself up about like what I should have done differently the last 10 years in my business, and how I could have exited better, and why I'm doing what I'm doing now. And I'm just beating the crap out of myself, like mentally, like, because I have tons of space. And so if you really want to know, like, how you're showing up in life, go somewhere and be quiet. And I was quiet. I was forced to be quiet because my internet access there sucked. So I couldn't distract myself with my phone. I had turned off a lot of my work because I wanted to take that time. And I just had the ability to, I wasn't doing any podcasts. I told my coaching clients, hey, I kind of toned it down for the summer for that month. So I just had a lot of space. And I'm in this like cool country. I'm, abroad. So like everything I'm saying sounds awesome, right? Like I rented this woman's house her name's Leela Downs, and she's like a Grammy Award winning, like famous Mexican, like folk singer. Rented her a cool house. She had like a fucking music studio in her house, like the size of this room, like with a piano and shit. Wow. And yeah, it was this really cool place. And I'm sitting here like in this cool place, cool city. My kids are there. This is 2 years ago, so my oldest is 12 and my youngest is 8. With my wife, my in-laws are there. And I'm sitting here like obsessing about my former businesses and beating myself up and super unhappy. And I was like, and there was just this I just broke where I was like, there's no logical reason that I should feel this way.
Right.
And I'm going to rewind back 6 years earlier. I was sitting at a table. I was 39 years old, 38 years old. And I'm sitting with this woman named Oksana Esberard. And she's this like mindfulness coach at MIT. And I was just like a year and a half away from turning 40. And I was like, I feel like something's missing in my life. I don't know what it is. And at that point, like big company, had 1,000 employees. I'm like, flying all over the place, kicking ass. Like I checked a lot of boxes that I like, bucket list shit that professionally that like I had always wanted to check. And I'm like, yeah, I just feel like something's missing in my life. I don't know what it is. And when I was doing it, I was like, here I'm 38. I didn't do all the things I thought I should have done in my life. I think I took a wrong turn, got in the wrong industry. We talked a little bit about this before the show. I was in the mortgage industry. I just felt like I'd picked the wrong industry. I wasn't where I thought I should be. I was comparing myself. I just met Elon Musk. I was comparing myself to him. I didn't tell you that right after I met him, I shook his hand. And about an hour later, I went and met this guy who was working actually in the AI division of Keller Williams. This guy I met at TED a few years earlier. Cool guy. And he's like, how you feel? And I'm like, honestly, man, I feel like a loser. So like it was the one time in my life that I actually compared myself against someone else like hardcore. And I was comparing myself against Elon Musk. And I was like, I'm such a loser. This guy's doing so much with his life. And here I am like running this $200 million mortgage company and like, I'm a loser. And I actually felt it. And so about a month after that, I'm at MIT and I'm at this table with these amazing people and we're talking. And I said, I just feel like something's missing in my life. I don't know what it is. And I was thinking that part of that conversation with Elon was part of it. And she asked me this really interesting question. She's like, well, have you looked within?
Wow.
And I was like, my immediate response was, what the fuck is she talking about? I'm like, of course I looked within. I'm like the most contemplative person on earth. I'm sitting here obsessing about this shit. And she's asking me if I looked within. Of course I have. And I was just like, well, yeah, I have. I just don't know what to do. It's just like, it's this emptiness feeling. And so that was the beginning of it, like that moment. And here I was 6 years later. And there's a whole story in there where I ended up basically like quitting my job and selling my business. And like, I had a full fucking meltdown, that was when I was 41, so it was like 2.5 years after that. Full-blown meltdown. And then I was like, all right, I swore off this industry that I had been in for 20 years, and I'm like, got into coaching. I'm trying to figure out what the hell I want to do with my life. And so here I am. I sold the business. I had to exit. Financially, I'm doing well. Built all this new stuff. Did my book. Did my podcast. Coaching a bunch of people. Awesome stuff's happening for me. Still trying to figure out, but I know it's not like the next thing, but it's like a good like stopover. And I'm sitting here and for one moment I get quiet and I'm in Oaxaca and I'm like, maybe the issue is not outside of me. Maybe the issue is this. Like there's a constant variable here, or there's a constant denominator here, me. I'm the one that's constant. You can put me in all these different situations. And there was something that I left out in 2019 when I was leaving my business. I was really unhappy in my business, and I made a decision matrix, kind of like I did with private equity, of like every single thing I think I should do. Start a podcast, consult, help people build their core values, coach CEOs, entrepreneurs. Like I made a list.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then I stack ranked them. And I was like, maybe that's what I should do with my life next. And then I went and did all of them. I did every single one.
Yeah.
Literally, I looked at it later. I was like, holy shit, I did every single thing on that list. And I was still unhappy. And so then I had this moment when I was quieted down in Oaxaca, when I was like, it's me.
Wow.
like you can put me you could take me out of any situation and I can create logic around why, when this one thing changes, then I'm going to be good.
Yeah.
But I've done this now and I've checked all the boxes over and over and over again. And I said to myself, well, I'm not happy in this industry. If I go do these other things, then I'll be happy. And then I did them and I literally like picked apart why they all sucked.
It's always like, when I'm this, when I'm that, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And what happened when you went within then? What actually happened?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but and I think I might have told you some of this when we first met. I had something happen where I was like, I literally had a meltdown. And I kind of had the meltdown when I was 41, but here I'm 44, 3 years later, I have a bigger meltdown. And I'm like, but there's no reason for it now. Like the reason is like, I can't explain there's a reason. And the reason is I'm like, and someone had called me this a couple years earlier, but they're like, Darius, you're chronically dissatisfied. And I was like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that person who just said that to me. I don't appreciate they said that, because I actually consider myself like a happy person. But I was like lying to myself. And so I'm in, and what I learned was a lot of stuff through this process. I learned that we are really good at lying to ourselves. Like we're really good at it. Like like if you, and I was a person that was like, hey, I love myself and I'm so honest. And I realized, no, I'm really good at manipulating myself into believing what I need to believe so I can feel safe.
What does it take to get to that truth though?
It all comes down to the same thing, hitting rock bottom over and over again, like not being happy, not being satisfied, and hitting this ground and being like, why the fuck am I on the ground again? And then standing up and being like, and then doing it again and trying and trying and trying. But I came to a conclusion that night when I was like literally I'm triggered, hardcore anxiety. And I'm sitting in Oaxaca and I'm like, there's no reason for this. There's no reason for me to be anxious right now. Like nothing. Like if you write down what my life on a piece of paper, any rational human being is going to look at this and be like, dude, bro, your life is awesome. You have fucking 2 awesome kids. You have an awesome wife. Like, yeah, maybe you're not doing exactly what you want to do with your professional life, but what you're doing is still fucking cool. You're meeting all these amazing people. You're going to hang out with all these awesome people. You have a great network. You have a great social life. And here you are, like, counting all the shit you don't have, you know? And so I was like, so I'm watching, so at nighttime was the only time my phone worked. For whatever reason, like the Wi-Fi would work. So I could get on
in Oaxaca.
In Oaxaca. So I could get on Instagram. And I'm looking at Instagram and I see Ed Milet is interviewing Robin Sharma. And so, and I remember, you guys know Ed Milet.
Yeah, when you said
Miracle
chronically.
Morning. Is he the Miracle Morning guy?
That's Hal Elrod.
Oh, hell.
When you said chronically dissatisfied, it reminded me of Ed Milet when he says blissfully dissatisfied.
Oh, I haven't heard him say that. But so I was not an Ed Milet fan at all. I was like, I grew up in Southern California. He's kind of this like jacked dude with like dyed hair and, you know, like he's in his 50s. Good. The guy's fit for his age and stuff, but it's kind of like he's got like a arm tattoo, like a you know, like kind of a tribal tattoo.
I've seen him a couple times on stage. Yeah.
Dude, he's
great speaker.
Great speaker, right? But I was like, here's an image of him with his private jet on Instagram. And I was like, who's this fucking douchebag? Like, I hope he never hears. Maybe he should hear this because, like, he changed my life in a really profound way. And I really do want to meet him. And so I'm like, so I see him interviewing Robin Sharma, who I didn't really know that well either, but a Robin who I just actually interviewed Robin Sharma like a month ago, which is fucking awesome.
I think I saw that.
Yeah, it was so cool. Like, it was so cool. Like, manifesting is good. Like, I hit him up a bunch of times and then he came on the show.
He actually once replied to me on Instagram.
Really?
I actually wrote to him, and I mean, I don't know if it was him, but yeah, I feel you. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah, you got to collect no's. So I collected a few no's from Robin and then he just did my podcast.
So cool.
So I spent an hour with him, which was awesome. But Ed's interviewing him, and I remember I'm like, you know, and now I haven't told you this, but like my favorite podcast is mine. Like, I love my podcast. I'll listen to myself and interview or like, I love getting interviewed, and I love interviewing people. Obviously, I like to talk. I've been talking for like 46 minutes straight. Right? But I love interviewing people, and
you're brilliant at it as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I was like, God damn, I really like Ed Milet. He reminds me of me. He reminds me of how I interview. And it was the first time I ever felt that way about him. And so he had just written a book called The Power of One More. It had just come out. And I go down this rabbit hole watching a bunch of YouTube shorts of him talking. And I was like, dude, this guy's like a pretty smart dude, and his philosophies on life and shit. Like, it was
very
like
grounded.
Very grounded. And it was the right thing. It was the right moment. So this is manifestation. This is like, I think God was intervening. I think he was like, all right, dude, I finally have made you feel the fucking pain so hard. And now I'm going to give you a couple of little bones. I'm going to throw a few bones. I'm going to see if you're actually listening. And so, like, I'm such a believer that there's a higher power, because this couldn't have come at a better moment, and it comes, and I was open to listening. And so I was like, listen to all this. I'm watching these shorts. I'm like up for like an hour. It's late at night. Now my youngest kid, like, the way the house was set up was like, we had these like apartments almost. So like my wife and my son slept in a different apartment because my youngest son would not sleep alone. So I'm like by myself. It's late. I can like listen, so I can be loud. And I'm like, all right, like, dude, I know he just came out with a book. And I had started listening to a lot of books in 2022. My goal was to listen to 22 books in 2022. I ended up listening to 35. And so I was like on this kick where I'm like listening to tons of books. And so I was like, and I had a rule the way I listen to books. I always listen to the first chapter, and if I don't like it, I just turn it off.
Yeah.
And like, so like I got through 35 books that year. I probably started 100. So like there's a graveyard of books that I listened to chapter 1 and turned it off. And so I was like, fuck it. You know what, man? Maybe his book's good. Who knows? I mean, I really like his content. And so I listened to his book, and it was like whatever those shorts were, there was like the fucking appetizer for the main meal.
A couple crumbs.
I'm up till like 3 a.m. listening to his book. Now, the next day was Friday, and I was supposed to have breakfast with my wife at this really cool little spot that we had planned, like a breakfast date. And so I'm listening to the book. I'm taking notes. I'm like typing like crazy on my, and so there's a couple things that stood out that night. The first thing that stood out, and I'm sorry for the long answer, but it's a long story. You asked like what changed, and so it was this night, July 15th, 2022. I'm listening to this book and I'm taking notes, and Ed asked in one of the chapters, he's like, who do you let live in your emotional house? And I was like, all right, I'm going to be honest. He's like, do you, and like, who do you live, and who do you let live in your emotional house, and who does live, and who do you want to live in your emotional house? And he's talking about like happiness and joy and gratitude and like love. And I was like, yeah, man, that's who I want to live in my emotional house. But if I'm to be honest, and mind you, I just had a couple hard weeks because I'm like having high level anxiety and beating the crap out of myself and calling myself every name in the book mentally for like day in and day out, and replaying every bad decision or every decision that I should have made better with hindsight being 20/20, 24 hours a day in and day out for the last 2 weeks straight. And I was like, if I'm gonna be honest, like, those dudes aren't living in my emotional house. Like, they're there like 5% of the time.
Yeah.
And if I'm gonna be honest, 95% of the time, it's anger, it's frustration, it's envy, it's like greed, it's all these negative things, mostly envy and like anger. And I was envious of a lot of people, and I was angry, and I felt like I was getting fucked, and I felt like I was getting the short end of the stick, and I felt like I was unfair. And so I was like, I don't really want those people to live in my house. I want the good people to live in my house. Like, that's all I want. Like, those guys aren't serving me anymore.
Remember when our parents would tell us that attitude is everything?
Yeah.
I guess it really is.
Totally. And you have a choice in it. But look, it's funny because there's a lot that goes into like your thoughts, and I was carrying a pretty heavy burden of a lot of stuff from my childhood and things that had gotten me to this place. And there's a cool book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith. And I used that stuff, all that negative stuff, to fucking like whack myself and like whip myself into achievement and to prove that I can do hard things.
And there is power of negative thinking. There is power.
There's power. Like
It can be destructive though.
yeah, like if you look at a lot of like perfectionists or athletes, like a lot of them are like, I'm gonna fucking prove every motherfucker wrong.
Mm-hmm. And that's like an angry force.
Fucking anger force. Like that had been fuel for me. I'm like, oh, fuck you. I'll prove you all wrong. And I'm like, I'll just work fucking 20 hours a day. I don't care. Like, you're gonna go fucking have fun. I'm gonna fucking outwork you. And it worked. Like, it worked pretty well actually. And I leveraged that force for a long time. At that point, it was at least like since I was like 12 or 13 years old. So it was like 30 years. Like that was my fuel, telling people to fuck off and like that I would prove them wrong. I used to tell people, if you want me to do something, tell me I can't do something. Tell me I can't do it. Just say it. Say, you can't do that. And I will fucking, until I go to the grave, I'm like, I will fucking kill myself till you eat those fucking words. Like it would bring me joy to know that they were going to eat those words. I was like, oh.
Prove them wrong.
Yeah. I'm like, oh man, this sucks for you, motherfucker. Like you were going to watch me prove you fucking as wrong as you can be proved. And like, that was a great force. And it was there, you know, and going back to what we were saying earlier, like I didn't have imposter syndrome. I'm like, I'll just outwork you. I'll just toil and like, I'm willing to do shit.
So that's, I was wondering where the self-talk, what the self-talk was to eliminate this imposter syndrome. And that's what it looked like. You would say, I'm not worried about it. I'd outwork you.
Yeah, it's cool.
I'd crush you.
Like,
yeah.
I'm just going to crush it. Like, I'm going to like...
That's pretty powerful.
You're going to see how wrong you are. And then I'm going to get to... And what was funny is when I'd get there, I was never like, fuck that person. I was always like, told you. And then there was just a box I would check and I'm like, next.
Meanwhile, they don't even know that you're having this internal dialogue. You're smiling, having a good time with them, right? You're probably being friends with them.
They probably were my friends.
They're real friends. Real friends.
People who I loved.
Yes.
But then,
yes.
but I would get a nice little warm spot in my tummy when I would win for like one split second. And then knowing that they knew that I did, not knowing whether they gave a shit or not, but to me, they did. Yeah. Right. So fast forward back to Oaxaca. I was like, you know, like all these fuckers living in my emotional house and I'm over it. I'm like this just isn't fun. Yeah. And so I was like, and so the next chapter, one of the next chapters he's talking about, and I think this comes from Jim Rohn, talks about like when you dwell on the past, it's the equivalent to carrying around suitcases filled with cement, and like you gain nothing by it. It's heavy and like it's just like useless,
holding you back.
And yeah, it's total baggage, right? So I was like, here I am, literally letting a bunch of assholes live in my emotional house and just carrying around luggage filled with fucking cement all day long. And I was like that, and I had this visualization of it. I mean, I'm having it right now as I say it. And I was like, well, that's no way to live. So I made a promise to myself. And there's one more part. The book is The Power of One More. And Ed's whole thing is like, do one more of everything. Like one more push up, one more hug, one more I love you, one more, like all the positives.
One more call.
One more call in business. It's always that one more. That extra is what helps you like get what you want. And so I was like, you know what? Tomorrow's Friday. Tomorrow, I'm going to give myself permission. And this is what days of tomorrow's going to look like. Only awesome people are going to live in my emotional house. Only love and gratitude and friendship and happiness and all the things I want are going to live in my emotional house. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's number one. Number two is I'm not going to dwell on any of the past shit that's been bugging me at all. And number three, I'm going to do one mores all day. I'm going to give my kids one more hug. I'm going to like be extra nice to my wife when I have the opportunity. I'm going to be like, give a random person an extra smile. And I only have to do it for one day. It's just 24 hours.
One day.
Just one day. And at the end of that day is going to be midnight on Friday. It's going to be Saturday morning. I can go back to being an asshole. So that's it. Like, I'm like super like an easy thing to do. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that this is how people quit drugs, by the way. Like just one day where I don't do drugs, right? So I didn't realize I was addicted to like a lot of this shit.
It's a pattern.
Yeah.
Right?
Who says you were addicted?
I think I was addicted to well, I think my body got used to the hormones associated with like anxiety.
Yeah.
Like that helped me feel protected, right? So I think there was an addiction around protection, right? Feeling safe, but it came at the expense of like worrying. And so I took my wife to breakfast and it was the best day, man. It was like,
she like, what the hell? Who is this?
No, because look, I think a lot of this stuff, I think that I'm a pretty like magnetic person.
But it was all internal.
Yeah, no one was seeing this.
Okay.
they were seeing glimpses of this, like at moments. My wife would see glimpses of me being anxious, and she would see like very few people were seeing what was really happening.
Right.
Like, so this is like something where like this is happening.
Dark demons.
Yeah, dark, deep demons. They would actually, the demons would come out like when I was like intoxicated and stuff.
Okay.
And it was around like wanting attention and getting, and I'd get kind of manic and I'd get people fired up. And I've always been a person that can activate people. And so it would come out in these positive, fun ways, but it always came from this like deep place of like wanting to be seen and wanting to be like, feel like valued and stuff. But it would come out in ways that like socially, like people loved, like, so like it was like people were like, this guy's the best. Right.
Yeah.
But little did they know, internally it was like coming from a place of like wanting to feel valued, which I hadn't yet discovered at that point. And so I had seen it, but I didn't understand it. And so I just had the best day. I was like, my God, that was the best day.
This is what life can be like.
Yeah. I didn't even have that thought. It wasn't like, it wasn't even like, it was just like, I just had the best day. Like I felt good. And I'd really had a rough couple weeks. And I was like, what if I did it like one more day, So I did it again on Saturday, and I had an amazing day again. And I was like, fuck it, how about Sunday too?
Yeah.
And I went like 6 or 7 days straight until like I relapsed a little bit. And when I relapsed, it was like something small, like something, I had a bunch of anxiety over something, a business thing or something. But when I was like, man, that was pretty good. So right around, I finished the book like within 2 or 3 days, and it was like this great book. Right after that, like the next night, when I'm having these good days, again, nighttime, I'm able to get internet on my phone, and I see Lewis Howes interviewing Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
Now I know Lewis Howes. I follow him a little bit. Our podcasts have similar names. His is The School of Greatness, and mine is The Greatness Machine.
You got to interview him.
I know, yeah. I'd like to interview him. I think we've asked him to be on the show, but he's hard. He's hard. It'll happen one day. They'll all be on the show.
I'll find him for you.
So anyway, I didn't know who Dr. Joe Dispenza was. I didn't know anything about him. Like I literally knew nothing about
quantum.
Yeah. So yeah, the quantum, exactly. And so I see him, and he says something, and it was kind of the same thing that happened with Robin Sharma and Ed, where there was something he said, and I was like, huh. It was like, I don't even remember what it was, but whatever it was like, it like kind of struck me. And I was like, who is this guy? And it was like the right message at the right moment.
Yeah.
And like the same thing that had happened a few days earlier just happens again. And it was like, I heard the thing I needed to hear at the moment I needed to hear it. And I was like, who is this guy? And I go and I look and he's, I look him up, and he has all these books, and I was like, and I'm reading, I'm devouring books, right? Cause I'm on this book kick. And my goal is to like get through 22 books. So I'm like, all right, well, I have nothing to do. I'm going to pick up another book. And so I go, which of his books do I want to read? And so one of his books is called You Are the Placebo, which is about like how you can essentially cure yourself of like cancer through your thoughts. And I'm like, that's not really applies to me. Like, I don't see how I'm going to use that. But then I see a book, which is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And I was like, that's what I want to do. Yeah. I want to do that.
Bingo. Yeah,
like that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Yeah.
Like, so I start just going through the book. Same thing. I'm like, oh my God, this is like exactly the book I need to read. Which, by the way, like I've now probably read 100 books since like in those 2 years since then. And like, it always happens to me. I always get the book when I need to get the book.
Yeah. It all happens at the time it should.
I get the book that I need to get when I need to get it. So I think I honestly believe that this is how God like talks to me through like recommending me books.
Well, you also are receptive to it.
I'm totally open to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're closed off and not looking, it won't come to you.
Yeah, I'm a very naturally curious person, but I mean, I was looking in 2018 when I was like when I had the moment where the girl asked me if I would look within. Which, by the way, I'm interviewing her on the podcast again for the second time, like in next week. Wow. Which would be cool because like it's a full like come around circle with her. And
yeah, that's so cool.
She's gonna see like she's a cool.
You're like, hey, I finally got it. No.
Yeah, I am gonna talk to her about it. Yeah. I can't wait to talk to her. But so I'm reading that book. I'm taking notes. And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, man. Like his whole thing is like your thoughts get essentially create neural pathways, and those neural pathways form over time, and they create like essentially these responses that create your emotions. And I was like, man, I want to rewire my brain. Like I have all these ways I think about stuff. And so at the end of the book, it's like July 29th. I'm on my way home from Oaxaca. We've been there for the whole month of July. I'm in the Dallas airport, and I get to the section where he essentially has a 4-week meditation where you rewire your brain.
Yeah.
Have you guys done this, by the way?
It's on the list. I haven't gone yet.
No.
Oh, you should do it. If there's anything you want to work on, his rewiring meditation is like game changer.
Is this not the one where you go in person? No.
You can do that if you want, but I just read the book and then I'll tell you what I did. So I read the book, and at the end there's a 4-part meditation, and it's like a guided meditation. And so week 1 is and it's a 4-week. Week 1 you do like the first meditation, which is an induction. It's like getting in your body. And then week 2 you do the induction, and then you do the week 2 meditation, which is basically like you pick the emotion you want to work on, and he like takes you through a meditation on essentially like teaching yourself to like change that emotion when it's not serving you. And then week 3 is surrendering to a higher power, and then week 4 is like your new state, right? So I'm gonna like set the table a little bit. So I go and I'm like, all right, man, like I'm down. Like let's do this. Like I want to break the habit.
Why not?
I want to break the habit of being myself.
Yeah. I
want to like fix this. And for me, it was around like anger and like anxiety and fear. Like I had a lot of fear. I love it. I was very like the emotion I wanted to work on was fear. Like I'm always scared of bad things happening. At least I was then. And so I do and again, I'm like, I like my voice, so I like record myself reading the thing, and I do it slow, and it takes 8 minutes for the induction, and then I record myself doing week 2, and then I record myself doing week 3, and I record myself doing week 4. And so it ends up being a 32-minute meditation, but you go week part by part. So week 1, I'm just doing it. I do the induction thing, and I started meditating. I guess I started meditating a few years earlier.
So is this you playing your own voice to yourself every day?
Yeah. You guys can hear it. I have it still.
Oh wow!
And so I'm laying in bed and I'm doing the induction thing, and I get done. It takes about 8 minutes, and I go and it's like kiss my wife and drink coffee and hang out with my kids and like go to work. And then week 2 happens, and it's like around like changing fear. Like I want to get rid of fear in my life. And so I do that. I do the induction for 8 minutes. I do 8 minutes around fear, and then I get up and kiss my wife and kids and drink some coffee and go to work. And then week 3 happens. Now, I have to say this. Like, I'm not a religious person, like at all. I believe in higher power, but like I'm not raised religious. My mom was born Catholic and like completely denounced all religion. She hated religion. My dad was raised Islamic, Muslim, and was like anti. So my parents were like anti-religion. Like I never went to church once with my parents growing up. A lot of my friends were like Christian kids, and I'd go and I'm like, this is kind of weird. I had Christmas in my house, but it was like, like I'm not a person that's like, to the glory of Jesus. Like that when people say that, I'm like, okay, like that's cool. Like if that's your jam, but like it didn't mean anything to me. Or Allah or any of that stuff. But I've like always been considering myself kind of like a spiritual person, and I believe that there's a higher power, and that was about as far as it went. So week 1, induction, do that for a week. Week 2, I'm doing the rewiring your brain thing. Week 3 is surrender to the higher intelligence, which is that's his way of kind of like not being religious. This is like the Joe Dispenza, like you surrender to the higher power, higher intelligence, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So I'm
well said, Joe.
Yeah, exactly. He's like watching what he says. He says it in a way that's very like palatable for anybody. Yeah. So I'm laying in my bed, waking up in the morning. I'm meditating, and I swear to God this happened. Like what I'm about to say is going to sound crazy, but it happened. Yeah. And so I'm laying in bed, and I get to like and it's my voice, right? So it's my voice, and it goes, and then there's like kind of like you can hear like a rustle between each section. So I go through the induction, I'm laying there, I do the fear thing, I'm laying there, then it rustles, and I go into the surrender thing. So I'm laying there, and he goes, and now, he says something, it's my voice again, and now, surrender to the higher intelligence. I think that was the part of that meditation.
Higher intelligence.
Surrender to the higher intelligence. You're not in control. Some shit like that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm laying in bed, and all of a sudden, I just feel like this thing inside my chest, like start like an energy. And it's like getting strong. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I'm laying in the bed, and it's getting stronger and stronger. It starts pulling me off the bed. And so right at that part, and I'm getting pulled off my bed, like as if you're laying in the bed, something's like pulling you up. And it's at that part. And I was like, and I'm like, open my eyes. I'm like, what? And then it stops. And I was like, what the? And I was like, I'm like, okay, listen, like nobody's in the room with me. I'm like, did that just happen? No, I'm telling you, people were watching this listen and be like, this guy's crazy. And I'm like, listen, call me what you want. That happened. And so I get up, and all of a sudden I'm like flushed with emotion. And I'm like not a very, like I'm a very sensitive person. I have a high neurology towards sensitivity, but I'm like not very like unless I watch like puppies or some shit on TV, I'm probably not going to cry. I just fucking break down and start bawling. And I'm like, what just happened to me? Like,
Oh my goodness.
and so I go to my wife, and I'm like, and she's in the kitchen. I'm like, you're not going to believe what just happened to me. And she's like, tell her. And she's like, dude, what's this guy talking about? Like, imagine your husband comes in and he's like, hey, I was like doing my meditation. I got to the part where it's talking about the higher intelligence. And then I started getting levitated off the bed by a higher power. And then I'm bawling, crying. You'd be like, that guy's fucking out of his mind. Right? I would think that. So I was like, I was just like flabbergasted. I was like, I don't know what to make of this.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Like that shouldn't have
That's out there.
Like that's out there, right? So next day, same fucking thing happens again.
Wow. And this time, I'm guessing you just let it happen?
I let it happen every time. It happened every day for like 3 weeks straight. Now, by like week 2 or week 3, it like started fading, but it was, dude, at that part, now surrender to the higher intelligence. Boom.
What?
Every day for like 2 or 3 weeks straight. And now at this point, I'm like, and I had this moment, and this like this thing came over me, because it's at the part where I surrender, right? And I'd had glimpses of this over like where I'd visualized surrendering, where I felt free. And I was like, what if I'm not in control of my life? Like, what if I'm not the one that gets to choose? And I never like really totally internalized that before. I never thought, because I'm not a person that's religious. I'm not someone that's like, oh, I'm just here doing God's work. Like, I'm a person that's like, I'm going to grind and make it happen. And I was like, what if I'm not the one that's in control? And like imagine if you believed, like, which probably a lot of people watching this are like, I am in control of my life. And I'm like, what if you weren't? And what got me there was I was like, I have white knuckled the fuck out of this thing. I've tried as hard as you can try. I don't think you can try harder than I tried to get what I wanted in my life. And I'm here I am, having done that, and I don't feel good. I actually feel like shit. I said, so fuck it. I'm done. And I just quit. I said, I'm not the one that's in control. I'm not in control.
And then what?
I'm not in control anymore. Someone else is in control. I'm just here to do the work of a higher power. And I'm going to quit trying to be the one that's in control. And I'm going to have a different perspective on this, which I doubt you guys thought this was going to go in this direction, this conversation.
No.
Right?
Love it.
So, but because and I've told this story to people like a lot since it happened, because it changed my life. And I was like, what if I'm not in control? Like, I've tried to control everything. Like, and I want listeners to listen. How much have you tried to control, and have you gotten what you wanted? And my answer was really simple. I've tried to control everything. And when I get it, I'd be unhappy, and I'd want more. And when I didn't get it, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that doesn't seem like a great way to fucking live, because I just have a feeling the stakes are going to keep going higher, and I'm going to get that stuff and feel the same way. Because let's go back to 2018. Like, how about if I looked within? Like, I'm the person, I keep showing up and I keep feeling the same way. And I was like, I have a different perspective now. I'm not in control anymore. I gave myself a hall pass. I was like, you're not in control, dude. Your job is to show up and live your talents to the best of your ability, and quit trying to like achieve these hedonic treadmill bullshit goals that no one gives a fuck about. Even you don't seem to give a fuck about, because when you get them, you're not happy.
Yeah.
So what if you just like quit trying to do that? What if you just show up in like service of like being amazing for everyone around you, and try to just do cool shit? That, not with the goal of doing the cool shit, but showing up to live your talents so that cool shit happens.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm down for that, because this other thing is not working for me. And I was 44 at this moment. And I'm like, I'm not living the next fucking 44 years like this.
You'll end up killing yourself.
Yeah, like I didn't even go there. It wasn't even like this. Oh, this bad thing's gonna happen. I was
You
like,
would have probably perpetuated disease.
yeah, I get
right?
cancer and all the way everyone dies, right?
Right.
I was like, yeah, I'm gonna die either way. And I have this really good friend I just met, who became my instant friend. Who's like a guru, and he's like, "Look, what if death is the beginning, man? Like, quit. Like, we all think that this is real, you know?
Yeah,
like,
that's a great way of looking at it.
it's like death's the beginning. Like, this is just a moment, you know? And when you start to like do the math around like how many planets there are and how many galaxies, you're like, we're nothing, you know?
That's great.
This is just a blip, you know? And so like,
That's amazing.
so the number, by the way, is 21 sextillion planets in the universe. Like
21/6.
yeah, it has 21 zeros after it,
Wow.
right? 17 sextillion, 21 zeros. The number it's exponential. It's so fucking big you can't even imagine it. So when you start to think like I'm nothing, this is small. All this shit that I'm like worried about is meaningless. And what if I'm just here to like serve?
Just have a good time while you're serving. Be kind to yourself.
Yeah. Like why am I beating myself over this goal that doesn't matter, that nobody else cares about, and I don't even care about, because when I hit it, I won't be happy.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, that's a really interesting way to like show up. And so I was like, I'm gonna show up that way.
Darius, how do you? What variables are on your daily success scorecard? How do you rank a day? How do you rank yourself successful in a day?
Yeah. So I just saw. So what ended up coming out of this whole thing was that went away. What you're talking about,
Well,
like that thing where it's like, oh, I have to like check the boxes on the monkey wheel to like hit my goals. I'm done with that. I don't do that at all.
Let me reframe. It doesn't have to do with goals, with business, with achievement. I'm talking about perhaps other forms of success, such as achieving a state, attaining that state.
Yeah. So I have an answer for you.
Yes.
So, but I'll get there in a second, because this all comes to that.
Okay.
Like where you're 3 steps ahead of me.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. So so I was like, all right, I'm done. Like I'm a guy that was like, I'm gonna make this amount of money. I'm gonna do this goal. I'm gonna weigh this amount. I'm gonna like bench the press this. Like I would check all these like I was always like this like numerical thing. Like I'm gonna build a company with X number of employees. I'm gonna like do this book. I'm gonna it was always these boxes I would check, and I was like, God. And a lot of them were things I didn't even have full control over. And then I wouldn't hit them, and I'd be like, oh, I'm the worst. And then I'd see someone that hit them, like, fuck that guy, And so I was always like comparing myself, and I was like, God, I'm like done. Like I'm not doing that. Like I'm not even here to do that. Like I'm not in control. Like quit trying. Why am I trying to control everything? I'm not controlling anything anymore. I'm not. That's my job.
My pastor always says that. He goes, y'all think you're in control?
No.
Nope. And it's like, dude,
what if you aren't?
right.
So I'm not here to say whether we are or aren't. I'm here to ask the question, what if you're not?
Yeah.
So if you're not, then how would you live your life differently? And I got really comfortable with it really quickly, not because I'm smart, because I was scraping rock bottom. I had achieved most of the shit that I wanted to achieve within it wasn't everything, but it was a lot. And I was as unhappy as I'd ever been. And I was like, fuck, if this is how I feel after doing all this, then what's the point?
What's the point?
That there's no fucking point. And so I was like, maybe the point is for me to just show up and live my talents and like just be here in service of a higher power. That sounds good. I'm going to try that. So I instantly, the minute that happened, now what I didn't tell you is I was 44. I had lived 40 years of my life with chronic anxiety. And the meditation I was doing was around the fear that was creating the anxiety that I wanted to get rid of. And when that moment happened, when the surrendering and then me envisioning the future self, the 4-week meditation, a switch turned on. I went from being a chronically anxious person to zero anxiety, like zero. Like I quit, like I didn't have any. And it was like, I'm telling you, like anxious, like where I'm always anxious, to like literally having none. It was crazy. I was like, and it wasn't like, oh, and I'd been working on my anxiety for a long time, and I had built all these systems around managing it, and I had seen tons of therapists, and I had a meditation practice, I had exercise practice, and you name it, I was doing it. And it was all this like tactical shit. And the thing that stopped it from me was I was like, well, you're not in control, man. So what are you worried about? You're worried about some shit that you're not in control of. So why are you worried about it? And so the minute I was like, well, I'm not in control, so why am I worried about it? Like, I mean, bad shit would happen, and I'd be like, well, I'm not in control, so like, fuck it. I'm just going to try to make the best of it, right? And the minute that happened, my anxiety like literally went from a constant state of anxiety to 0, and it was overnight, and it has stayed that way. I'm on year 2 of it being like, like almost 0. And I have my moments where it'll come back, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like where's this coming from? And then I've gotten to do other work, but so that was the first thing that happened. And that was in the fall of 22. And then I read, you're talking about Hal Elrod, I read his book, Miracle Morning. I started doing a Miracle Morning practice. And it was interesting when I was doing savers, which is like silence, affirmation, I can't remember, visualization, I'm forgetting the other ones. But anyway, I started doing what is it? The daily affirmations.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, man. Like, so this is when I started the private equity business, and I had written on there, I want to raise $100 million, but I was like not attached to it. I wasn't like, oh, if I don't do that, I'm a loser. I was like, oh, that would be cool if that happened. So I had a new approach around like manifestation. Before it'd be like, I would whip myself to make it happen. And now I was doing it different, where I was like, no, there no more whipping. Like, that would be cool if it happened, and I should go do the things that might create that. And if it happens, great.
Yeah, so you're not focused on the outcome.
0 care about the outcome.
And you're actually just enjoying, you're having fun.
Yeah, it was just like,
Doing it.
it was just like, let's enjoy the process. I was a person that didn't understand what that meant. When you'd be like, hey, like, it's all around the journey. I'm like, fuck the journey. Like, I want the outcome. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, like, well, no, the journey's around with this. Like, I finally got it, right? And so when I was in the middle of doing that, I started like realizing, I was like, oh, like there's really only like I'm kind of done setting goals for myself. Like I've lived my whole life setting all these goals, and when I hit them, I'm not happy. So why do it? I'm just here to serve a higher power, to like live my talents, to create awesome shit. And so I was like, but I did some affirmations, which again came from a different place. It wasn't around like the goal. It was around like, that would be cool if that happened, because I was like living my talents. And so I said, there's really only like, and at this point I was getting really focused, because I was like starting this is early 23, starting the new business. I was kind of shedding some of the advisory work I was doing. The podcast was doing pretty well. And I was like, I'm going to get really focused. There's only like 3 things I give a shit about: creating impact, building relationships, and being healthy. Like, and those really like, and so I created like a 3x3 matrix. And I was like, those 3 things matter: create impact, build relationships, and be healthy. Okay. Well, how do I want to do that? And I was like, I want to build a private equity business. So I want to focus my energy there. I want to help entrepreneurs, because I was still advising some. And I want to keep doing that. I just don't want to do as much as I was doing it. I want to do it like a little bit less, but I still want to keep doing it. And I want to really lean into my podcast. Like, I love my podcast. It's building. It's like my creative outlet. So I'm going to spend my time doing that. And I'm going to focus my energy in those areas. Relationships. I want to pour into my family, my wife and kids, my brother and sister, and my mom, like my immediate family, but most of my wife and kids. I have a lot of long relationships. We talked about that earlier. I have this like network of people. I'm like, I want to keep pouring in I want to keep like watering those beds of flowers. Like, I want to keep like going. A lot of people don't live here in Texas, but they're people I've known for 20, 30, 40 years now. Well, probably 20, 30, 35 years. I want to keep like investing in my old relationships, but I want to like build a network of friends here in Austin, because I never, like, most of my friends weren't here, and I'd leave all the time. And I was like, no, I want to build a friend group here. Or friend groups, whatever. I just want to meet people here that are cool. Like, this is me, by the way, pouring into that right now. Like, this is like me agreeing to do this. Which, by the way, you don't know this, but I don't agree to do any podcasts, which is silly because I have a podcast. But
wow. I'm very grateful.
Well, no, and I'm not saying that for you to be grateful. I'm saying it because the reason I did is because I really love your girlfriend, and she's awesome. And I was like, and I was like, yeah, I'm like, fuck it. Like, I want to become better friends with her.
It's so crazy.
And she talks about you, so.
But everything you've said is like almost like you're giving me a message for what I need to hear right now.
Oh.
I just want to say thank you.
Oh, I'm glad.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I'm glad. Well, you're welcome. So I was like, so that's but this is something I would have probably have said no to in the past. I would have been like, fuck, I'm so busy right now. I literally just got like back from St. Louis. Last night, I haven't seen my kids that much, which is me like letting go of the top one. But I'm like, no, I want to do this. So that's me. This is an example of it. I'm pouring into like building friendships here. And then,
It's a lot.
yeah. And so I do that a lot more now. Whereas in the past, I would just say no to stuff because I'm like, no, it's just my wife and kids and like my old friends. And then on health, it's really like my soul, right? Like it's my eating well, my lifting, my exercising. And I'm doing a lot of mobility work. We were talking about injuries before the show. I'm like, I learned something recently, which is whatever your age is then a percent of time you should spend for every hour you spend exercising with mobility and stretching. So how old are you?
34.
And you're in your early 30s, right?
I'm 36.
Yeah.
But my real age is 28.
Right. So that means for every hour of exercise, you should spend at least 20 minutes rolling out your muscles and stretching in order to have healthy muscles.
Oh, wow.
Wait, say that again.
For every 1 hour you spend like pounding on your body, running, whatever, anything that's like weights, anything that's not mobility work, you should spend a third of an hour because of your age, stretching and tenderizing your muscles and tendons through like rolling them out like a foam roller.
I feel that. Yeah.
And like that's a number you should use, and you should also start to think about, as far as inflammation goes in your body, like drinking water and high like hydrate or whatever that word is, but hydrating your body, electrolytes, all that stuff around muscle health, and that'll make it where you don't get injured. This is like the whole Tom Brady thing actually. The TB12 is all around this actually. What foods do you eat around inflammation? So for me, it's really mind, body, and spirit, which is soul, right? So it's exercise, diet, and meditation, and now with exercise and mobility. And so it's like, so I have these 9 areas of my life. You asked around goals, and I'm like, those are the areas, and I'm constantly leaning into them. And when I fall short on one, I go back to it. So in the past, I would beat myself up. Oh, I'm not hitting my goal. And now it's like, dude, my goals are simple. Am I working on my business? Private equity, yes or no? Am I working on the podcast? Yes or no? Am I like investing in my time in entrepreneurs? Yes or no? And if it's a no, then I'll go and add a little time to it. And the family, am I spending time with my wife and kids? Yes or no? Is it quality time? Yes or no? Am I investing in my old relationships, reaching out to old friends, saying what's up? Yes or no? Am I building relationships here? On my way here, I was texting back and forth with David Gonzalez. And he said hi. And so and I was helping him because he's buying a house right now. But that's me pouring into my local friends, right? And then mind, body, and spirit. Like today, I stretched and I drank some protein shakes and try to get some good sleep tonight, and probably meditate when I go home, right? And so so that all comes to one thing though. I got really clear on who am I trying to be,
right?
And so for me, it's who am I trying to be. The goal is for me to be those 9 things.
Right.
And those 9 things might change, or how they show up in my life might change, but I'm super clear that there's only 3 things that matter: impact, relationships, and health. And those are the 9 ways they show up. And that's how, and if I'm doing those things, I am who I'm supposed to be in the world, so I can live my talents, so I can create the value I want to create.
And that is how you win.
And so when I did that, I started doing that in the beginning of 23. I raised it. I got committed $12 million of capital in a business I had 0 experience in. I almost bought a company. And then I got reintroduced to the guy Joe, who my friend, remember earlier I said, hey, my buddy introduced me to this guy who helped me in my call. Yeah.
Couple texts.
So I'm now in the wealth management space because I'm raising money to buy wealth management firms. And mind you, like I'm not from the space. I don't, I'm like not a person, I'm not a known entity. I'm just like some random. And I'm seeing the industry. I'm now in the industry, and I see something come across the wires, and it says Joe Duran's leaving Goldman Sachs. And I was like, I know that guy.
Yeah.
Shit, fuck, he's in the space.
It's Joe.
I met him before. I had one conversation with him 3 years ago. So I hit up Matt, my buddy Matt. I'm like, hey Matt, would you mind like reintroducing me to Joe? And he's like, sure. I said, I have 2 questions for you. Number 1, do you think he would do my podcast? And number 2, do you think he'd advise my fund? And he's like, yes to number 1, probably not to number 2. And I was like, all right, well, whatever. Remember collecting no's.
Yeah.
So we schedule a call. It's me, him, and one of my other business partners, who I found, the guy that I talked to when I was in Oaxaca, who brought this idea to me, Dan. And so we have a call and Joe just rips into the idea, just shreds it. Like, just, I was like, oh, and we get off the call and I go to my buddy Dan. I'm like, that didn't go well. But at the end of the call,
Didn't expect that. Yeah.
yeah, well, I had no expectations. I was just like doing what I had been doing the previous 4 months, which is socializing the idea to people. And he was just another guy I was socializing the idea to. But at the end of the call, he's like, hey, we should have another call. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So this is literally like a year ago, like last week.
It's like if the date goes really bad, you're like, and then she's like, we should do this again sometime.
Yeah, we should have dinner again. You're like, I thought you hated me. No, it wasn't that bad. But he definitely like was like hard on the idea. And this is this is like middle of April last year. So we have another call. That next call turns into another call, and by June he was like, this is my next thing, I think. And it took me till September to get him to fully commit. But he's like, hey, look, you guys are raising $20 million. I don't know what the hell you're gonna do with that. He's like, I'll do this if you want to raise like $200 million or $300 million. And I was like, yeah. I'm like, dude, like I'm all about doing it big. I'm like, that was just proof of concept. And so yeah, we started. So this was in September. We started raising money, and yeah, we raised $250 million in January.
Wow.
You raised $250 million.
That's the day I met you.
You met me the day I closed on $250 million.
Yeah.
When you say I'm just gonna place this because it's getting a little feedback there. $250 million. When you say you raised it, how does that process look?
It's a pretty specific process. So like I had raised money before, so I knew that, like, again, like, look, I had done a lot in my career. Like there's no way he would have partnered with me had I not had the track record I had. I had a pretty like respectable track record in running a big business and raising money and stuff like that. So we hired an investment banker specific to the space. He had a very big reputation, having sold his company to Goldman Sachs. And then he ran a portion of their business for 4 years as a partner at Goldman Sachs, which is a big deal. Like partner at Goldman Sachs is kind of like being like in Congress. Like you're like a statesman in the financial world. So that's a big deal. And so he's a celebrity in the space. So the reason we were able to raise so well was because of his track record.
Okay.
And we built a good team. But yeah, we hired an investment banker and we went and pitched a bunch of private equity, and it didn't take that long. It took 4 months.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it took 4 months. We pitched 20 plus people. It came down to a couple of them. We had a couple bids, and we took the one we liked the best, which was basically our investors out of Harvard. They came out of the Harvard endowment. So
this type of language is like if you were to talk to me about ballet or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very like it's a different language.
Raising fund. Like who gives you that money? Where does it come from?
So our
100 people.
No, so there's different ways of getting money. Like you can get money retail, which is like going like to like friends and family or to like high net worth individuals and get them to cut you a check. It's really interesting. Like raising $250 million was a hell of a lot easier than getting people to commit $12 million to me. Okay. Way easier. Raising big money is, and I have a saying in life. There's two types of people in this world: people that allocate capital, and then everyone else. And so what happens is most people, when they go to raise money, they go to everyone else. And that's not what they do. Like most people, are not people that like all they do is cut checks for investments for a living. And then there's capital allocators, and that's all they do. Now they're very discerned in general. There's dumb money and smart money, but what happens is most people raise money and they don't have a track record of raising money, or they don't have a track record in their business. It's a new idea, and they go to friends and family and get money from them. And it goes back to my buddy when he had told me proof of principle. You're proving that you're someone that can do something with their money. And most people fail. So like it's high risk. If I give you money and you've never raised money before, or what your business is a new business, there's like a 95% chance that money's going to zero. Like most people don't realize that. They're like, oh, he's so smart. No, there's like a 95% chance you're not going to get your money.
Is that statistically proven, 95%? Is that accurate?
I think I might have just made that number up, but
that's what your senses are telling you? 95, around there? High. It's just high.
Really, really high.
Really high.
I will tell you that the actual number is that 80% of companies go out of business within 10 years. That's a real number. And so even if it's 80% chance, no one gives you a check expecting 20% chance of getting their money back or for it to be successful. And so, yeah, like what happens with most folks is they'll just they raise from people that don't allocate, which is most people on this earth. And it's hard to raise money. But there's a whole ecosystem of people that all they do is cut checks. and you have to like approach them a specific way. There's a very specific way to approach them, and there's a lot of boxes that have to get checked before they'll talk to you, and that's a process. It's like anything. It's like you're in real estate, right? If you want to buy a house, there's a process associated with that, right? And if you don't know that process, you ain't going to buy a house more likely.
What's the specific purpose of that money?
To go buy, for us, we're buying pieces of wealth management firms and then helping them grow. So for us, we've built a team of people that go in and we help them grow their business, but we go and we cut them a check first.
Oh,
My friend is doing this in the med spa industry.
Yeah. This is a very traditional play in private equity, but in that space, and what they typically do is they'll go buy a controlling interest of it, or they have their own company and they'll go buy a bunch of little ones and roll them up. They call it tuck-ins. They'll tuck them in under them. They'll roll them up because one med spa practice is worth whatever, 1 or 2 times revenue. 100 of them are worth 10 times earnings.
Okay.
So you can make a lot. So I'll give an example. Let's say a med spa makes $500,000 a year in revenue. You could probably sell it for $1 million, 2 times revenue, 1 times revenue.
that's great.
Yeah. So maybe, right.
Could
Like,
be.
let's say it's a 25% profit margin. That's a business that makes $125,000 a year.
Yeah.
So if you sell it for 500, let's say you sell it for 1 times revenue, you're going to sell it it'll take you 4 years, assuming it doesn't grow, to make the money back that you would have, of what you would have sold it for. So I sell it, I get 4 years of income up front, right? Well, if I own 20 of them, that's $10 million of revenue. Now I have something of size, and let's say it makes the same 25%, that's $2.5 million of profit, because it makes 25% profit margins. That's probably worth, I'm going to pick a fake number, 7 times earnings.
Yeah.
So 7 times $2.5 million is $15 million. Those 10 or the 20 are worth $15 million. But if each one's only worth $500,000 by itself, 500,000 times 20 is what? $10 million. Yeah. But if together they're worth $15 million, that's called arbitrage. That's made $5 million free money.
Right.
So that's why people get so rich in private equity.
That makes sense.
They do that.
Yeah.
So I just gave you an example of 20 med spas versus 1. What if it's 200? Well, the thing is as it gets bigger in size, instead of it being worth 7 times earnings, it might be worth 12 times earnings because it's bigger. It's harder. There's less capital allocators, and they need to cut bigger checks, and they're willing to pay up because they don't need as high of return. So 12 times, so it's 200. 200, each one makes $125,000 a year. What's that? The $37.5 million. $37.5 million of profit times 12, that's $500 million. So individually, though, those 200 are only worth $500K each,
right,
or $100 million. So I'm giving you a perfect example of how private equity works. Yeah. If I go buy, each one of those is worth $500,000 each. Together they're worth, and there's 200 of them. 200 separately, they're worth $100 million.
Yeah.
If I bought one and then each individual person ran it, but together, combine them together, that enterprise, those 500 together, 200 together, they're worth $500 million. That's how people make money in private equity. That's a $400 million difference.
What a system.
This is what my dad said I need to do. He's like, I don't know why you're wasting your time doing small introductions. You should be connecting people in exactly what you're doing. But it just goes a bit over my head. I need to learn it.
Yeah, you have to learn it. Like it's kind of complicated, and B, it takes time because no one will just do it unless you have a track record. So it's like a chicken and egg issue, and you got to build credibility. So for me, I knew I wanted to do it. Going back to the very beginning part of this conversation is I started doing this 8 years ago. Like 8 years ago, I was like, hey, I want to go do this, and now I'm starting to. I haven't even bought my first business yet. We're trying to, But yeah, it was so there. It took 20 plus years of real hardcore business experience to be able to be taken seriously to do it at this level. You don't have to do it at this level though. You can do it much smaller. You know?
What type of business? What type? I don't want to get super specific. Are you targeting?
For us, it's
purchase.
It's wealth management firms, like people like think of like a financial advisor.
Yeah.
So ours is a financial advising
right.
business. People that specialize in helping people manage their money. We're looking for firms that have probably about $2.5 billion of assets or more. So that's going to be, probably 2,500 clients. These are good sized businesses. Like they're a business that's doing 15 million to 20 million in revenue, probably 20 million revenue. I'd say minimum. That's a minimum for us.
So you buy a portion of it.
Yeah, we're buying like around between 20 and 40% of the business. So we're buying minority stake. Yes. We're looking for like super high growth businesses. We buy a piece, and then we have this like Navy SEALs team of people that that come in and we're
rocket fuel.
Hey man, like look, my business partner Joe like built one of the largest private like wealth management firms in the United States. Like he knows how to build he built a $25 billion firm, and then he ran a $150 billion firm at a portion of business at Goldman. So if you are running called a $2 billion firm or $3 billion firm, I'm like, yeah, here's a guy that ran a $25 billion firm. Like, you want to know the best way to learn how to do something? Go learn it from someone that's done it before you, right? So, like, that's part of our story. Like, even me, like, I'm new to the space, but I'm like, I built a financial services business from 0 to 1,000 employees, like, before I was 40. So it's like, you want to learn how to grow a company? Like, I can tell you how to do it. Like, I know that shit in my sleep. And so, like, we come in and we just have credibility because we're operators and we have experience operating, and we got a bunch of different partners in our business to have these, like, really specific, unique skill sets that are complementary to helping that specific business. So that's what we do. That's what we're trying to do right now.
Okay. All right. Deep breath in. Time to go for a ride on the Magic School Bus. Okay?
All
Let's throw it way back now. We're going to go on a trip down memory lane. You ready for this?
Let's do it.
Oh boy, here we go. You grew up, you came from California, but where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Orange County.
You grew up in Orange County. You were born there?
I was born in Anaheim, yeah.
In Anaheim, Anacrime, they call it, I heard.
Oh, really?
Is that true?
I've never heard that before, but maybe.
Oh, okay. I was there last year. Well, that's what somebody said. Maybe things have changed.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I liked it.
Yeah, it was all right.
Pretty spot.
I mean, I grew up in this area called Anaheim Hills, which is a nicer part of Anaheim.
Very good.
That's where all the baseball players from the Angels live.
Oh, definitely nice spot. So you're growing up in Anaheim. What was it like? What was the atmosphere like in your home when you were an adolescent, when you were a kid?
Oh, it's
elementary school.
Yeah, it's just sucked.
What do you mean it sucked?
Oh, I had a terrible home life.
So bad to where you say it sucked.
Oh yeah, it sucked.
Taking on the whole 95%, 100%, sucked all the time. Any good moments?
No, man, no, not a lot.
Really?
Yeah, no.
If you were to pick a good moment, one flash memory.
Yeah, like Christmas morning.
Christmas morning.
Some of them were good.
Okay, well that's good. So what made it suck?
Oh, I mean, I had a pretty like volatile household I grew up in. So
you take the school bus?
I did take the school bus.
You get off the bus.
Yeah.
What was your feeling when you're about to walk inside the door?
To go to the bus or to leave the bus?
To leave the bus, go inside the door of your house.
Oh, probably like...
What were your feelings?
Probably like not happy.
Really?
Yeah.
Not happy? Why?
Yeah, I don't know.
What was happening?
Well, I don't know. No, when I came home, it was fine. I was like, oh, just happy to be home because I was like, oh, you get to not be at school.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. What about your familial relationship? What was happening there?
Not very good. Yeah. I had a pretty unhappy like home.
No, was it because of anger emotions being displayed in front of you, or was there substances involved, or what did that look like?
Maybe like that wasn't the primary issue. So it's actually a pretty long story, but so my dad so I grew up in a multicultural family. My father was Iranian, my mother is American, and my dad was an entrepreneur, but he was older than my mom. He was 13 years older than my mom, and they met when she was 19 and he was 33. And in Orange, California, she had just moved there from Western Pennsylvania. He was in grad school getting his MBA at now called Chapman University. It was called Chapman College then. And they met, fell in love, and then moved to Iran. And this is in the 70s. And I was born in 78. So this is like 75. And Iran then was like, Tehran was the capital city of Iran. Was like the Paris of the Middle East. It's like kind of like what Dubai is now. Like that's a fair, like that's a very like correct explanation. Like when you think of Dubai, that's what Tehran was. It was like the it was like the Paris of the Middle East. And so my parents lived there, and like my mom was like, there was a lot of Persian guys. The Persian government was sending a lot of people in the United States to get their higher education. It's paid for by the government. So my dad was one of those people. went back, and he was the head of business development for Mack Truck, which is like, big trucks, right? So he ran all biz dev for Mack Truck for the whole Middle East. And he's like this fucking badass sales guy. And so my mom was pregnant with me and my brother. I have a twin brother.
Oh.
And she was 5 months pregnant. She was having tons of complications with the pregnancy. And so she came back to the States. Her parents were in SoCal because they were living in Anaheim. And my brother and I were born 1 month premature. We almost died at birth because back then being born premature was like no bueno. We survived, obviously. And then I guess so that was May of 78. And in December of 78, my dad came to visit us. Goes back in March. He was there for a couple months, goes back to Iran. And in June of 79, we all moved back to Iran when we were healthy enough and, old enough to like travel. So have you guys ever seen the movie Argo?
Yeah.
Ben Affleck?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a story of Americans being taken hostage in Tehran, Iran. It was a big scandal. It's called the American hostage scandal. It was worldwide news.
Yeah.
So basically, there was this revolution happening in Iran, and there was a huge American embassy, and they took over the whole American embassy and had like over 100 hostages. They kept for like a year and a half or something like that.
Dude.
It was a massive, big fucking deal. It was like there was a botched rescue mission. So that shit went down. I moved back there when I was 1 years old in June of 79.
Yeah.
And a few miles away from where I lived was where that happened. And that happened in November of 79. So November of 79, my parents were like, we got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And they fled the country, like got out, like in the middle of like this shit going down, which was like crazy.
Yeah.
And they ended up back in the States. My dad ends up going back because he's like has a life there, and he's like getting like basically selling his cash on money on the black market to get cash to come to the States, selling all his shit. Ends up taking him a year and a half to do it. Gets stuck out of the country. By the time he gets back into the States in 1981, I'm 3. I probably spent 6 months of my life with my dad at this point. And my mom and my dad reunite, and they lived in Fullerton. Now my dad at this point, he's like, well, it's 1981, so my dad would have been 42. He's 42 years old. My mom is 28, 29. Me and my brother are 3. And we're living in this like little house in Fullerton, California. And my dad needs to like make a living. And my dad doesn't speak that good of English. And this is in the early 80s. And so you guys are young enough and you were not from the United States, but like if you're like Middle Eastern in the early 1980s and Iranian, and like, dude, there was so much racism against these guys. It was like brutal.
I can imagine.
Yeah, like it was not good. So my dad, and he doesn't speak the language that well because English is not great. And so my dad ends up he has to start something. He's got to make money. So he ends up buying a gas station in Riverside, California, Texaco, Texas Oil Company.
Yeah.
So he buys a Texaco with like the little money he has. And my dad goes from like having this super high level executive job where he's kicking ass, making commissions, selling Mack trucks all over the Middle East to like running a gas station. He's 42. And like, I can only assume based on the way I am that I'm like, that sounds super fucking depressing, right? If you imagine like, if I said, hey man, yeah, you're not living here anymore. You're living in fucking rural China and you're going to open a fucking gas station and you don't speak Chinese and they don't speak fucking English.
Yeah,
That's your life, dude. Go get up every fucking morning. You're working 7 days a week because you can't afford to hire people.
Yeah.
And you have this awesome job now, but that's your new job. And you're going to do that for the next 20 years.
Oh.
So you can imagine, I've thought about this a lot because my dad passed away when I was 22 years old. And I was like, why was he such an asshole? And I'm like, that's why he was an asshole. Now, I'm not saying he reacted well. I'm not trying to defend his behavior, but I do understand it. And my dad was just a super depressed guy. He just like wasn't, and my dad was like I saw him very happy in certain moments, but he was not a very happy person. And I grew up with a person who basically I saw was not grateful for his life. He had 2 young boys. He ended up having my sister. My mom was a wonderful person.
What did he do in the house?
Oh, he was just an unhappy guy, man. He worked 6 days a week.
So just because his unhappiness, did he act upon that unhappiness?
Oh yeah. My dad was not he, I don't want to be disrespectful to my dad, but
okay, yeah.
But my dad was like took it out on the family, in like ways that like you wouldn't like. I don't want to go into details just out of respect for him, but like in ways where like I didn't love my dad like my dad that much.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he took it out on the family, and he took his unhappiness out on his wife and kids, and like it made it where it was a really unhappy household.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in a household where there was a lot of fear, and for good reason, and like where you just couldn't be a kid. And so, you know, like I've thought about it a lot, and like for me, you know, I got my way of getting around it was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go be like good at sports and good at school, and like stay the fuck out of people's way, and you know, and like and get recognition that way. My brother was the opposite. My brother was like bad at school and bad at sports, and was like, I'm going to get recognition by being a fucking total jackass, like getting in trouble. And then my sister, like, she's 6 years younger than us, got to like kind of be in the middle of that, you know. And my mom, you know, it was a lot of unhappiness like growing up.
How'd your mom manage this space?
As best as one can, you know. It was just a tough environment.
Yeah. So this is elementary school. You don't have much say in the matter, right? You don't have your voice yet either, because people typically don't get that until they're maybe a teenager.
Yeah. I mean, I probably did have a voice actually, because
You stood up for yourself.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
As an elementary.
Yeah.
Really?
Like pretty. Yeah. I mean, like as best as I could.
Best you could.
I mean, there was definitely moments where like that was not an option.
Mm-hmm.
But no, like I like was pretty vocal like, with my family. Like I can remember being vocal like when I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Outside the household, you were seen as in the public eye as a good kid. You're focused on sports and academics.
Yeah.
You never acted out. Your brother was the one acting out.
Yeah, but so I got a lot of anxiety because I was always worried about my brother getting in trouble, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like it was like good reason to be worried about it. Yeah, no, I was like total like teacher's pet. Like my teachers loved me. You know, I got good grades, and I was a good athlete, and like I was like checked all the boxes. Like,
yeah.
but, you know.
It seems like the exact thing of what you were saying. You were addicted to all the fear and that kind of started then. Really.
Yeah, looking over my shoulder, right? So no, for sure,
That's what you were used to.
Yeah, like it all, you know, some of this, and you know, there's a lot of studies around family trauma and epigenetics and stuff like that. I've done a lot of work around it just to understand like my own family and to try to like make sure like I don't do the same things. But yeah, and a lot of fear around like just safety. You know, if you grow up in an unsafe home, you learn to watch your ass, you watch your back. You're like, hey, the repercussions from me fucking up are really high. You know, so how about I don't do that? You know, and you start to get really good at not messing up.
Yeah.
Or if you're my brother, you're like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to do whatever I want. And I'm going to run havoc because I'll get seen that way. And then, you know, and you get seen one way or the other, you know.
So let's move a little bit more towards the middle school era now, right? You had a different school at that point in time.
Yeah, I went to a different elementary school is different than my junior high.
Okay, yeah. So you're there. What was that experience like for you? Because that's can be a very weird time in a lot of people's lives.
I had a brutal junior high experience. Like,
tell us more about that.
So I have a twin brother, as I mentioned, and so we were like, there's a saying, there's a TV show. Have you guys ever seen the TV show Modern Family?
Yeah.
So there's a scene in the show where the guy's talking about his like the two guys who were married on the show, the two men, where the heavier set guy's talking about his boyfriend in Iowa when he was growing up, and how he's like beautiful, and he's like, oh well, you know, was he, and the other guy says, wow, you know, was he smart? He's like, no, son, no. He's like, no, dear. God does not give with both hands. And I love that quote. And so yeah, my junior high school was like, God did not give with both hands. So, my brother and I were like these like kind of chubby Afro, like half Middle Eastern, half white kids who just like looked goofy. And so we were easily a target. So in that way it was negative. The positive was like, we're fucking so sharp tongued, like we're so quick and funny, and we were kind of ruthless.
They're a team.
Yeah, so we were just always, and this started when we were young. And this is like like my dad's like that too. My dad's like really quick. My mom's like that too. And so we grew up like we didn't have to try. Like we were like, you guys just watched the Tom Brady roast.
Yeah, I just watched it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we're like that naturally. Like we would fucking ruin you. And so I can remember ruining people when I was like 9. Like I'd be on a school bus and like some 12-year-olds would come on and start talking shit on us, and we would just like clown on the 12-year-old and like who were 13-year-old, who's like a junior high kid, and the 4th graders, making everyone laugh and point at them, and that's me and my brother.
Yeah.
So we've like that just has always come naturally for us. Like the thing where you say something and the whole room goes, oh, like that was us. And so we go to junior high and like instantly people start picking on us, and we're like, well, fuck these people. And so we just start clowning on them, and I'm like, and that did not go well. And so we became like hardcore targets, or like we were getting bullied hard.
When was that its worst?
Or early in our junior high school. So when we got there, it was the 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah.
And we had gone to an elementary school that was about 5 miles away from the junior high. And most of the kids at my elementary school went to a different junior high. So there was a small group of us, and we were like the popular kids at our elementary school. But we were like really small group, and we didn't know anybody at the new junior high.
Yeah.
And so we get there, and like right away you see the cliques and stuff, and we're like, and it's me and my buddies, but we're small. Like there's not many of us. There's like 6 of us. And then you see these like groups of kids, and there was one group of kids who were all these like young football players, and not like European football, American football, Pop Warner football.
Mm.
And all the girls that I went to elementary school with were like the really pretty girls, and they were like our like girlfriends when we were like 6th grade. And so all those guys were like wanting to hook up with the girls that were like our ex-girlfriends.
Yeah.
And so that starts happening. And so they'd start friending with the girls that we know. And, but I don't know, man, they started picking on me and my brother, and my best friend in junior high school's brother was this like fucking maniac who would like beat the shit out of people. So no one fucked with him. Mm. But me and my brother like were like targets. And so one day we're going to soccer practice because we played soccer, and we're walking to soccer practice, and the American football kids start talking shit to us. Now, I want to remind you what happened when people talk shit to us.
Yeah.
We fucking start talking shit about them. We roast them. So we start, I'm not going to say what we said because it's not appropriate, but
I can only imagine.
We start insinuating that they had a preference of sexual inclination that did not include girls.
Right.
We started making tons of like gay jokes.
Yes.
Which this is the 90s. Like that was totally cool then.
And you were in
I was 13.
Yeah.
So we started like
you get pass.
Basically, we started calling them gay, like which was not something that they took really well. So in the middle of my soccer practice, like they all come over. These are like 13, 14-year-old kids. And they beat the shit out of my coaches and me and my brother and our entire team.
What?
They jumped adults.
Oh my God.
They jumped adults.
Whoa.
And their coaches let them, which is fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like I'm an adult man now. I'm like, that's weird. It was just weird that they did it. So their dads were like supporting them bullying, right?
Yeah,
so they like attack us, and anyway, it gets broken up. This is like 7:00 at night on like a Tuesday. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I got to go to school tomorrow. So I'm going to school, and I'm like, that's not going to be good. I get to school, man, and like these guys were like, from that moment forward, we were their fucking target. And they were like, there was like way more of them than there was us.
Yeah.
And so it became this thing where they were just like every day, they're like, fucking like, so that next day these 10 kids come up to me, and it's like me, I'm like this, like I'm probably like 5'2", 5'3", like $120.
Yeah.
And these kids come up to me, and one of them just fucking punches me in the face. And
the heck?
Yeah, no, like they were like trying to fight, they were trying to start shit with us.
Yeah.
So my brother gets punched in the face, I get punched in the face, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm super anxious, like I'm gonna get my ass kicked. And like it wasn't going away. My mom goes to the school doesn't do shit about it. This is like before Columbine, which is when the school bullying stuff changed. And so yeah, that was the beginning of this like massive bullying. And my brother was heavier than I was. He was a pretty overweight kid, and so they were just making like fat jokes about him and like talking shit about him and me, and like it was, and then even some of our other friends, but we were like the two main targets. And my other friends were left alone because they had older brothers. But we were like, it was fair game. Like, and they were, I'm telling you, there's 2 of us and there was like 20 of them. And so I lived in fear for like weeks. So, and they kept trying to start fights with us, and these kids were like the kids that were like 6 foot tall and like had already gone through puberty, and we're just like these little like chubby like 12-year-olds. And so I was like, God, I don't know what to do. So my mom's going to school. My mom calls the coaches. They're like basically talking shit to my mom and my dad. I mean, it was fucked up. So one day, my mom says to me, my dad's not helping, because my dad's just like, my dad was Persian and he had like real heavy accent. He's like, you need to poke their eyes out. I'm like, Dad, that's not helpful. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean I need to poke their
With what? A stick?
No, my dad's telling me to poke their fucking eyes out with my fingers.
Ooh.
It's like, that's my dad's advice. And I'm like, that is not helpful. Like, what do you mean? Poke
I'm
their,
a kid,
I'm gonna fucking poke his fucking eye out? Really? That's literally the advice my dad gives me. So my dad's telling me to poke their eyes out. Yeah. My mom's calling the school. School's not doing shit about it. My mom's calling the fucking football. They're not doing shit about it. And every day I'm going to school and I'm like, I'm going to get my fucking ass kicked today. And so I was super anxious about it. And so my mom says to me, she goes, no matter what, I love my mom. My mom's full Italian. She's fucking hardcore. She's like, no matter what, you got to always get the first punch in. So this is the, like,
what the heck, dude?
So, yeah. This is a really like funny story. This is a transformational story. So
that's what it's all about.
So now maybe this is like a month in. Every day I'm fearful getting into a fight, and I'm just kind of and they're walking by us in the hallway and like shoving us in the lockers and like start trying to fight us, and like it just like, you know, I'm evading a fight every fucking day.
Yeah. So
one day I'm at lunch and I'm walking by these fuckers, and there's one kid in particular who was like a redhead, fucking, his name's Nick Caesar. And there's another kid named Chris Lundstrom who's like the gang leader. He's like the quarterback of the football team. And they're like these ripped little fucking football players. And Nick's like, and I'm walking by, and Nick goes to Chris. He goes, hey, Chris, do you smell what I smell? And I'm like, and he goes, I smell pussy. And he points at me. And I was like, I'm like, whatever, fucking ignore this guy. And then I was like, you know, fuck this guy. I was like, and like, cause I have this part of me that's like, I don't take shit from people.
Right.
And so I was just like, you know what? And I get in his face, and he's like, oh, Nick, he wants to fucking fight you. And they like people started getting all hyped up. Right. And I was like, you know what? Fuck this. And I just walk away. And so this girl one of the girls who was my like girlfriend or something from elementary school, she's like, Darius, just ignore them. And I'm like, yeah, fuck these guys. And I just go in line to get a Coke or something. And then they started making the pussy comments, like going, like, turn up the volume, right? And so I was like, you know what? Fuck these guys. And then so I go and get it, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck you guys. And the kid Nick stands up, and he's bigger than me, and I have braces then, and he fucking pushes me in the face. Now I grew up in a household where like there's abuse. So, like, touching my face is, like, not cool. Like, it's not cool to touch anyone's face. Mm-hmm. But he, like, shoves my face.
Red.
And this other kid, his name is Mike Farina, who ended up actually being friends with him later, shoves my head. And I just, like, took a step back. And Margaret was the girl. She's like, Darius, just leave. She's like,
run, Forrest.
And I was like, and then this voice goes in the back of my head. Always get in the first punch. and I go down, and I fucking sock this kid in the face as hard as I possibly can. I didn't feel anything. And next thing I know, I'm bashing his head against my knee, bashing his head against a pole. And I was just like, yeah, like I'd lost my mind.
Yes.
I'm beating the living fucking shit out of this kid.
Okay.
And I look up, and I didn't even realize what I was doing. And all of a sudden the kid Nick's on the ground, and Chris goes, you're getting your ass kicked. And I was like, what the fuck did I was like shocked at what I just did. And this kid's not weak. Like, this kid's a tough kid. And he stands up and starts like fighting me back, hits me a couple times. And next thing I know, I'm on top of him, pinning his, like, my knees are on his chest. I'm pinning him down. And have you ever seen the movie Christmas Story?
Yeah.
You know the scene where the redhead's getting pummeled by the Ralphie?
Yeah. Yeah. With his little mittens on.
Yeah. That's me.
Yeah.
I'm crying and just like screaming and crying and bashing this kid's face in. And the teacher comes to stop the fight, and I push the teacher away and just like continue to pummel this fucking kid.
Yeah.
Like it was like rage. And they finally ripped me off of him, and I'm just crying, and I have blood into my mouth because I have braces, and I'm just like, fucking, I'm just like I lost my shit. And so I go to the principal's office, and I get suspended, and he's like, I kicked your ass. I'm like, fuck you, I kicked your ass.
Oh my God.
Did it stop after that?
Oh.
The story gets better. And so my mom pissed me up, and it was like Christmas. My family took me out to dinner and movies, and like they were so proud of me that I beat this kid's ass. And but it was interesting because I'd seen this side. Like I'd never been in a fight before, but I was like, oh shit, I could protect myself, you know. Yeah. But and so the next week at school, one of these other kids is doing the same. One of the other kids starts shit with my brother, and now they're not fucking with me as much because like there's this like first step, right? But they're still fucking with my brother. And so my brother is like big kid, and he ends up almost killing one of the kids. Like he's like choking the kid out. I see the kid's turning like green, and he gets suspended.
Dude.
And then after that, they didn't fuck with us. Like they left us alone.
That's all it took.
And then what ended up happening was, like they were just, like these kids were probably abused by their parents and shit, man. Like as an adult, like listen, I was like, for myself, I'm glad I stood up for myself. Like I think I think parents should teach their kids to stick up for themselves. And I think if parents teach their kids you don't fight unless you have to. But like if you have to, you have to.
You have to.
You know. And so that was a good lesson to learn at that age. But looking back as an adult, like these kids, I knew like those kids' dads were beating the shit out of them, and they came from fucked up homes, and like they were just acting out. I was just some kid that I was a target. But yeah, that was a formative experience.
Yeah,
we ended up like all their friends left them and became our friends because we were funny and cool,
right?
And they were ended up
tables turned. Yeah,
but I always like even from that point forward, I'd see them growing up in high school and shit. They didn't go to my high school, and I was always like, I still want to beat that guy's ass some more. Like it never left. I never liked that. I was never cool with those guys ever.
Yeah, it's hard to go back.
You asked me about junior high, man. I don't know if you expected that.
No, I didn't expect fighting. Street fights in the cafeteria.
Yeah, no, it was outside the cafeteria.
Oh.
It was outside. Yeah.
Where's Margaret today?
Margaret lives in Michigan, I think. She's veterinarian.
Do you still speak to her?
Yeah, we're connected on Facebook.
Wow.
She's helping. She's saving people, saving dogs.
Margaret was a great athlete. She played basketball at Michigan State.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so she's good. She's a good person.
When did girls enter the picture?
Oh,
for you?
Like probably like high school.
High school. Okay, that's a perfect segue. Let's talk a little bit about high school. You're fighting kids in middle school, getting suspended, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened in high school? What was that like?
It continued. We got picked on a lot. My brother and I don't know what it was, man. We just like had a look on our face. Like, this is a time in America where kids got picked on a lot. There's a lot of bullying. Mm-hmm. So we got bullied a lot our freshman and sophomore year of high school. It stopped after that in junior high. But when I got to high school, we got bullied again.
What did that do to you?
It was, I was like, I just got to get big so people can't fuck with me. So I got really obsessed with like the weight room and like working out and at sports.
Really?
And that was just kind of and it still didn't. I mean, it didn't help for the first couple of years because I wasn't like for a boy. I mean, girls, I think it's maybe a little bit different because girls mature younger. For a boy, like everyone hits puberty at different ages. Mm-hmm. Like some hit it really early, some hit it really late. I was kind of middle. So what ends up happening is the kids that hit it when they're like 13, like they're fucking men. Right. And then you got these dudes that are like, look like boys still. So there's this like pretty wide gap physically between the two. And with women, and maybe it happens with women too, but women don't fight with each other. No. So you don't have physical risk associated with like a delta in like maturity.
Yeah.
With guys, I don't know, did you have any of this shit happen to you when you were growing up?
What?
Like what I'm talking about? The fighting or like the fear of?
For sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Did you grow up here in Texas?
New York.
Oh, okay. In New York, in the city?
About an hour north.
Okay.
It was a mixed school.
Yeah, well then for sure.
All kinds of stuff, yeah.
So like that just, and dude, there's testosterone and there's all that shit. So there's a lot of fights. So I don't know, I remember getting punched in the face a few times. But I played sports and like, I just got, and I don't know, like, especially when you're young, when you're a freshman, when you're young in high school, the girls always date the older guys. So like it's kind of harder because you're kind of off. They get swooped up pretty quickly. At least they did in my high school. So that wasn't very helpful.
So what stands out to you the most about your high school experience?
My high school experience was when I got introduced to leadership. So I got really, I was always a pretty good student. I was always like honor student and stuff like that. But for me, the two things that I got obsessed with in high school was sports and leadership.
Yeah.
And that dominated. And it was probably the first time in my life, it was my junior year of high school, was when I actually started having fun. I didn't really have a fun childhood, but my junior year of high school, I started having a lot of fun.
What changed?
I was elected class president of my junior class, and I got into like a student leadership program that was like all like the captain of the football team and like the prom queen, and those were all my friends.
Yeah.
So I ended up hanging out with a lot of older kids, the people that were graduating when I was a sophomore, and the juniors and seniors when I was a junior. Like, so I was pretty mature for my age too. So a lot of my friends were older then. They were like the cool kids. And I was like, and I remember, going back to like, I don't feel imposter syndrome. Like I didn't there either. I was like, yeah, I belong. I'm like I'm a cool kid, So I felt cool it was like, I think I always felt cool, but it was the first time I think I was acknowledged publicly as being cool.
Right.
And I got to like people got to see it and know it. And like, I felt like, I don't know, I felt like I was in a good place. So I was like socially like in a really good place, and getting a lot of acknowledgement for it, and getting to do cool shit and learning student leadership. And that was happening then. And then I was obsessed with wrestling. I was a wrestler in high school. And so I started getting good at wrestling. And I ended up wrestling in college. But that was the first time it started actually like clicking for me. So it was a combination of just like physically I was like maturing a lot. Like I had always been someone that exercised a lot, and like I lived in the gym. And so, but I was finally like getting like maturing. So I was like physically like getting really big and strong. And so a lot of the things that had happened previously in my life around like protecting myself, like became a non-issue. Like I was like the strongest kid in my high school. So like if you're the biggest kid in your high school and you're a good fighter and you're like, people don't fuck with you.
In a way, they became a non-issue because you still had the anxiety.
I don't know if I had anxiety then.
No?
Yeah, I don't remember being anxious then.
I thought you said until you were 40.
Yeah, I always had an underlying anxiety. I had anxiety with girls then, actually, because I still tried, but I was always pretty anxious about like wanting to date people, and like that it showed up there, and it showed up in sports. For sports, it showed up a lot, actually. It wasn't around like fighting. Like that never showed up there. For me, it showed up in wrestling and with the girls.
Where do you think that came from?
It was the same thing. It was just like, because I'm a person that wants to win, right? So like if you have that
Pressure,
high stakes, right? So if you're a perfectionist and you want to win, well, and you're not collecting no's, which I wasn't collecting no's back then, and collecting no's in sports sucks. It means you're losing.
yes,
right? So like as a boy, and young man, like, what do you want? You're like, oh, I want to date that pretty girl, and I want to win in my wrestling matches, and like those are the things I was trying to do. So like performance anxiety, I wanted to win, and sometimes it didn't, sometimes it didn't,
Man, so I'm picturing this. You grew up in a household. There was some animosity. There was some real strong tension, and that kind of carried throughout your entire majority of your life.
Yeah,
majority of your life, and it manifested through anxiety and anger.
Yeah, anger was a tool for like motivation and for protection, and anxiety was there to like watch my back.
And would you say, correct me if I'm wrong, that your aim was to outwork your challenges?
That was just always like there because I knew I could like you control what you can, right?
Yes.
So like in some of those areas you can do it like naturally. So for me in sports you could do it because it's like there's an outlet to outwork. You can just do more, right? You can practice harder. You can go to the gym more. You can like you can live in the gym.
All to meet dead end roads.
Yeah, then it was around achievement, right? Which a lot of people do that in athletics. It's like you're obsessed with wanting to be good at something and you pour into it. And like, so I don't regret that at all. It wasn't, I can tell you that.
It wasn't an unhealthy obsession.
I don't know. I mean, like, I think that it's good to work for things that you want. I think to do it from a place of high anxiety is the negative. Like, I think me knowing what I know now, I would have approached it differently as an adult, like than I did as a kid, because having like really painful anxiety before performance sucks, you know, and even though it motivated me, like it still was like it was uncomfortable, you know.
What would you say you like most about yourself?
Oh, I like lots of things about myself. I like how I interact with people.
Yeah.
I think I make people feel good, you know. That's probably one of the things I like most. I like interacting with people. I like how I make people. I like how I show up with other people a lot.
Yeah.
That's something that's always been a gift.
Yeah.
Like I know it. I don't feel any concern around how, like, I'll go anywhere and like I know I'll make friends. That's not a concern for me. So
and you've always had that confidence.
Yeah, but it's just a gift.
The gift. Yeah.
Yeah. I like my sense of humor. I think I have a good sense of humor. I like the way I think.
Yeah.
You know, I appreciate a lot of things about myself.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, what's really great about your story is that it seems like at no point in time did you develop a victim mentality.
No, there was a little bit towards the end, like before the Oaxaca thing happened, where I was like, felt like I'd made bad decisions, or that there was moments where I felt like my parents were not very supportive of me, and like they were in some ways and weren't in some ways. But there was always these like tinges where I was like, oh, if my parents had been more like how I am, I would have had so many more opportunities, or if my parents had like paid attention more, then maybe I would have, you know, been different in some other ways. My parents were kind of hands off, and so I felt like there was a little bit of victim mentality around, like, hey, I wish my parents had shown up differently for me, because like if you're a twin, which I was and am, and you're a great student and a good athlete and all this positive stuff, good student leader, and your brother's like a troublemaker, like what ends up happening, most people don't realize this, is like the schools and the teachers talk shit to you about your brother, and B, you're protecting him. And C, your parents are going to watch how much accolades they give you, knowing that your brother's not getting it. So I was resentful of that, and probably up until pretty recently, where I was like, that's kind of fucked up. Like I would win class president, and my parents would be like, well, that's cool, whatever. Like it was like it was like as if I didn't win.
Whoa.
You know, but they were supportive in other ways, you know, and you know, like they would my mom came to all my wrestling matches. My dad didn't come till I was good, which pissed me off. Because in Iran, the national sport is wrestling. And so, like, my dad literally did not come to my wrestling matches until probably I don't remember him being there till my senior year. And I was bad until I was good. I was like the worst wrestler on my team, and then I became the best wrestler on my team. But when you're the worst, it means you lose every time. It means you get your ass kicked. So my dad didn't show up to any of that stuff, and he came at the end. And I remember just being resentful. Like, at the end, he'd run on the mat, raise my hand. I'm like, get the fuck away from me. You know, I was very resentful of my parents.
Tell. You could sense it.
I was like, I just envisioned it right now. I was like, I remember being so annoyed. I was like, dude, you're not allowed to celebrate this.
Yeah.
Like, you are not here when you did not help me get to this. I did this all by my fucking self. You know.
So, I was blessed with the opportunity to see my father change completely, to kill off his aggressive side.
Oh, that's
He's
good.
a completely different man than what I grew up to know him to be.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get to see your father change?
Yeah, but not in the way you're describing. So my dad, right before I went to college, my dad got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so, yeah, he got diagnosed with MS when I was 18. And so, again, so my dad was 33 when I was born, so he was 50. No, sorry, he was 60. So he was 38 when I was born. So he would have been 56, 10 years older than me right now. He was diabetic. He was type 1 diabetic. So he was always talking about dying. He's like, I'm going to die. You know, I'm like, I remember towards the end, I was like, fucking die then, dude. I'm like tired of hearing about it. And so he was always talking about when he's going to die. Like, I remember doing this when I was like 10, which is a really weird thing to say. Like, I have a 10-year-old. Like, I can't imagine telling him I'm going to be dead. So my dad was a depressed dude. And he was really angry. And it just got, you know, and you asked about substances, you know, like, you know, my dad like smoked a lot and he drank, you know, but he didn't, you know, he wasn't like, I wouldn't consider him an alcoholic, but he was a guy that drank at night by himself, you know, with his friends, you know, and then go to bed. So he didn't take care, and he's diabetic. So you like type 1 diabetic, you're drinking whiskey every night. Like that's not good, you know. But he wasn't the dude that was like, you know, if he was an alcoholic, he was a functioning alcoholic. Like it wasn't something I never considered him an alcoholic. He had other shit that I didn't like about him way worse than the fact that he boozed a little bit. But he didn't take care of himself. That's the point. And he didn't really exercise, but he was kind of my dad wasn't very big either. I'm about 6 foot, and right now I probably weigh like 240 pounds. And this is me lean. Like when I was in high school, I was almost 300 pounds. I was a fucking big dude. I mean, my neck was 21 inches, which is, I looked like a professional wrestler when I was in high school. I was literally like fucking like, I was like a beast. Like you look at me, you're like, dude, don't fuck with that kid. Yeah, I was like jacked. And my dad was like 5'7", like $150. Like he was this little dude. He was like this little dude, but he was fucking feisty and angry, and like he had a crazy temper. And he was like, no, and dude, I saw my dad get in so many fights, like fist fights with randoms. Like someone would like drive up their car and we'd be on like at a red light. I remember being 12 and like someone would like pull up to really fast behind my dad and like almost hit him. Yeah. And he would fucking hop out of his car with a fucking bat and start hitting their car.
Wow.
Like,
it's like a movie.
Yeah, no, my dad would like threaten people's lives and shit. He was fucking a maniac. So this is a guy that like was like, you know, like feisty and angry and didn't take shit from anybody. Which is like, you know, in some ways I respect it, you know, like he didn't, you know, I think down deep, my dad was a really loving guy. He was really funny. Yeah. Like you're fucking, my best memories of my dad are him and his friends laughing until they're crying, speaking Farsi to each other. I don't even know what they were laughing about, but I can remember that many times. And it was him making them laugh. So like when I talk about me and my brother being funny, I'm like, dude, I know where it came from. My mom's funny too, but like he was a funny motherfucker. Yeah. You know, he didn't even speak English and I knew he was funny. You know, he'd make me laugh, but I knew he was funny, you know? And so, you know, he had some positives to him and he was a good businessman. He was a really good businessman, but he didn't take care of himself. And so he got MS when I went to college, and that was a progressive disease. So by the time I was a junior in college, and I was like, get me the fuck out of here. My brother and I, like, it's funny now, people are like, oh, 26-year-olds is when kids move out of the house. They go to college, they come home. And I was like, dude, my brother and I were fucking out of there at 18. I went away to college. My brother got an apartment, like the one city over. Like, which is like, can you imagine your 18-year-old like getting, like, doesn't go away to college, just like gets an apartment with his buddy. Like, that's what my brother did. And so, and we were both making money and shit when we were young. And so, so his MS got really bad. He ended up getting dementia by the time I was 21. And then on my 22nd birthday, he got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And so, like, when you asked it, I watched my dad change. The answer is yes. In some ways, he was still angry, but he was like handicapped. So it was like, and then my mom, God bless her, took care of him, which I was just like, why the fuck you taking care of this guy? Like, he's just not a good husband. But yeah, you know, he was lucky to marry someone like her. But yeah, I watched him just like kind of like shrivel away, and he passed away in August of 2000. I was 22. And so I watched him shrivel and then pass away. So I did see him like change, but it was like not by like him like coming to terms with his, you know, his history. It was like, you know, he just died.
Yeah. What's FutureCast? What's FutureCast style? Let's talk a little bit about, you know, your purpose and things. If you were to have a message you'd like to share with the world, what is that?
I mean, I talked a lot about it earlier. It's like, you know, I do really think that we're here to like live our talents, to like optimize our lives, to create maximum like value to those around us and to the world that we're in the way that is useful given our talents, you know? So for me, it's really, you know, pouring into people through entrepreneurism and, you know, education. And, you know, I try to, you know, having grown up in the environment I grew up in, I really see that my kids are an opportunity for me to like really kind of do things differently, you know, and I think I've done a pretty good job of that. Yeah. But yeah, I really think it's just around like showing up to, you know, to live my talents, to create value. And, you know, I've done a lot of work around values. You know, I wrote a book about core values, right? So, but I've done work also around my purpose. And one of the things I say when people ask like what my purpose is, I say it's to live a poetic life, you know, and to help others around me maximize their lives to create value in the world, and to do it through myself as well. But the reason I chose the word poetic is because that's around the use of words. I believe that words are so powerful.
Agreed.
And whether it's how you're talking to yourself or how you're talking to others, even like a conversation like this, even if you think of like the things I said that got me to change, that got me to like realize the things I realized was around me hearing someone say something,
Yes.
And I was like, oh, it hit. And I was like, huh.
Dude, words are gold.
Words are power, man.
Yes.
And so, the choice of the word poetic, you can look up, I should memorize the definition of it, but it's around the use of word to create power, right? And to express oneself artistically. And for me, that resonates a lot. So I don't know how I'm doing it, but like, I do it a lot through like business. Like when I'm working with trying to, like for right now in the private equity world, I'm working with entrepreneurs directly to express like what through word around why they should do a deal with us and how I can help them, that's the gift I'm using. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I feel good about it. I love entrepreneurism. I think entrepreneurism is a tool for really creating value in the world in the most maximum way. I think that institutions have a hard time doing it. I think entrepreneurs are what's going to change the world in the way that it's going to save the world. So for me, it's pouring into those communities.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Word.
I agree with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap this up by playing a little fun game. 6 questions. Kayleigh and we're gonna ping pong off each other. I'm gonna set it off. We're gonna come at you with some sidewinders. Sidewinders. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. What would you say is the most fun thing for you to do?
I like to make pizza.
Sick. You're up.
Where is the one place you haven't visited that you need to go or want to go?
Oh, there's more than one, but like the number one place?
Yeah.
I really want to go to Brazil. Yeah. Now I'll take that back. Where I need to go is I want to go back to Iran.
Okay, back to your roots.
Yeah, but it's not like a safe place to go. So that like I feel called to go, but like it's hard. I really want to go.
Yeah.
But I haven't.
It's amazing. My friend is Iranian. I think if you can go there, it's not as dangerous as we think.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I'm always like, hey, the upside is it's an amazing trip. The downside is I get stuck there, which sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Especially I have a passport too, so I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. It's probably the risk is super low, but the severity is so high.
Yeah.
I'm like, that would suck.
Definitely.
So until the severity, unless I can assess a lower severity, it ain't happening.
Not yet. Yeah. Soon.
Not yet. I've been saying that for a long time though. Well, let's see.
Who's been the most influential person in your life?
Me.
Other than you?
It's me. Like that's the answer.
Oh.
Like there is no other person.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like part of the imposter syndrome thing. People used to say like, oh, who do you look up to? And I'm like, me.
Yeah.
Everything that's happened is because of me.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I'm like, dude,
That makes a lot of sense.
I wish I had a fucking mentor.
I'm so glad you said that.
Like, I've been my mentor.
Yeah.
Like it's been a lot of fucking work. There is no like person that's like that's it's me, dude. Like that's an easy answer.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What you got, KB?
What's the meditation that you do now?
I do TM, transcendental meditation. Yes, I've been doing TM now for about a year and a half.
Oh.
So I try to do it. My goal is to do it 300 times this year. I'm a little off track right now, but I'm not thinking about it.
Do you get a coach to teach?
I did. I have a great coach out of California that taught me, and then she gave me my mantra, and then tried
What's
it.
your mantra?
Yeah, you're not allowed to say it. Yeah, it's like you're not allowed to. Like you'll get
Yeah.
if you do it, you'll get your mantra, and you're not allowed to tell anybody what it is. It's a made up word.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Like I was getting dental work done the other day, and I was just like saying my mantra to myself while I was like meditating while they were doing fucking dental work. So your mantra becomes your friend. You can use it. I'll be in an uncomfortable spot, like sitting somewhere where it's noisy or something, and I'll just like close my eyes and fucking start saying my mantra to myself, and kind of chills you out.
Do you still have the out of body? Have you had that since?
No, I did do it. I went back and did that meditation actually again about a month ago, and yeah, it was interesting. I didn't have the out of body.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I really want to listen to the meditation.
Yeah. It's I mean, I have a good voice, so yeah. You asked what I like about myself. I like my voice.
It's good to like.
Have you ever
voice.
thought about becoming a voice artist?
I probably could. No, I haven't thought about it. I thought about becoming an actor before, but not a voice actor. But I could. I remember I was like, you were asking about girls. Like when I was in college, I've always had a lot of friends that are women and men, but and like, you know, that's not like when you're a young guy too. A lot of guys don't have girls that are their friends, right? That's all guys. So, but me, I had girls that were my friends. So this girl that she was going to UCLA, and her name was Marin, and she had this her roommate's name was Gina, this hot blonde Italian girl, and I would call Marin to just bullshit with her, and she's like, Gina thinks you have the sexiest voice.
Wow.
And I was like, that was the first time I was like, I do have a good voice. And I didn't like my voice then because I have a little nasally voice, but then I hear myself on podcasts and I'm like, I like my voice.
It's a good voice. Hi.
Hey, I would call Gina. I'm like, what's up?
Hi, Tina.
Hey,
Hey, G.
how's it going?
Hello, big boy.
What's going on? Hey, what are you doing?
What's your go-to restaurant in Austin?
Oh, go to, what does that mean? Like my favorite or the place I just go to because I like
The most frequent.
Oh, Uchiko.
Uchiko, sushi guy.
Yeah. I go to
Huh.
Uchiko. So one, like, I don't like paying for sushi because it's, you know, it's like it's always expensive.
It's a rip.
It's a little
It's fish and rice, dude.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
but it's good,
Yeah.
and it's like it's delicious. And so my mom's always like, "Hey, what do you want for birthday and Christmas?" I'm like, "Just give me a certificate to Uchiko because I know I'm like I will use it
Yeah.
if I'm not the one paying for it."
Yeah.
Fair.
So like my wife and I do Uchiko date nights like once a month, and it's just like our birthday and Christmas gifts. We always just ask for it. So
Awesome.
I go there a lot actually.
KB, send us out.
Last question. What? I know, I've gone blank.
Ask him about who he would want to talk to. If it's one person that's still alive.
I don't know that question.
One person that's still alive that you would want to talk to. You haven't yet.
One person that's alive, and I only get one.
Gus. You get to sit down for an hour and talk to him.
Oh,
Like, interview them.
oh gosh, there's a couple.
No. One.
But Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah.
I had a vision 2 days ago or a week ago, and I was doing breath work, and JP came into my breath work, and he said, "You remind me of one person." And I said, "Who?" And he said, "Arnold Schwarzenegger."
I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was someone I was idolized growing up because he was like.
I'm obsessed with
I
him.
love him. Yeah.
You could get him.
I mean, I probably, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to meet him.
I want to help you.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it.
I would love to interview him. I just read his book recently. It's such a good book, his new book. But I love him. I've always been a fan of his. He's such a cool story. Like, just his life story is awesome.
Such a good guy.
That guy was born in like rural Austria and ended up becoming the governor of California and marrying a fucking Kennedy.
Yeah.
Like, that's how awesome is that? He was like the #1 action star in the world.
Yeah.
That's just such a cool story. And the guy's just so disciplined. Like he is someone I actually look up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's and he's got a good sense of humor, and yeah.
Have you tried reaching out to him?
Yeah, I think so. I have to look. We have a list of people we reach out to. I'm assuming he's on that list. If he's not, I need to add him.
Have you tried LinkedIn yourself?
No, I'm probably, that's something I need to do to try to get some of the heavy hitters on the show. Is I probably need to personally write them.
You could also use AI now.
Yeah, you got to like really find who their people are, because we get a lot of, you know, obviously my show gets a lot of people now, right? And so we have a system for it. We bug them until we figure out who their publicists are, because he's not reading his shit. And if he doesn't know you, sure as hell's not reading it. So
We got to figure out who he knows, and then we'll get in.
you know, he got interviewed by Ryan Holiday. I saw that, and I was
Right.
and I saw that, and I was like, all right. I have to build up a bigger social presence, I think, to get some of these people, because all my presence is on podcasts directly, and that's where I have like 200,000 subscribers, and I don't have any on YouTube, or it's very low, or it's very low on Instagram. So what's happened sometimes, people are like, let me see your Instagram, like 35 people, and I'm like, I have 200,000 on the podcast platform, you know, but that's not where people go. So I gotta spend some time there.
Yeah. for you.
So how do people contact you?
Just go to my website, therealdarius.com. They can email me, Darius at therealdarius.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the best way if you want to like hang out with me is go to the podcast.
Go to the podcast.
Yeah. So subscribe to The Greatness Machine.
Yeah.
Read my book if you're a business person and you want to like learn about cool business stuff, around how to build a core value driven organization. But the podcast is good because on Fridays I do solos.
Oh.
So even like a lot of the stuff we talked about on the show, like these are probably 15 different podcast episodes that I've done that are solos. Those are Fridays. Fridays are the most prolific life learnings that I have.
So you just channel and share knowledge.
I have like a list I keep in my phone of like ideas for, here, hand me my phone. I'll tell you, I'll read you some of them. Like these are ones I haven't done yet. So I have to feel inspired to do Fridays. Wednesdays are interviews. Fridays are, so like, literally it's like all these.
Well, it's good.
So like, here's the one I just put in here. I was talking about it actually. So are you playing for the ego or playing to win is a show that I just thought of. Like, who are you playing for? Like, which one?
Right.
So that was, I don't remember where that came from, but
good.
And then the 10-second rule. So I've come to the conclusion that life is just a series of 10-second moments. And like, are you living in those moments or are you living beyond them? So those are a couple episodes.
That's so true. That's great.
Being beaten versus losing. What's the difference? So this came from McCune's book, Essentialism. So a lot of it I get from reading too, so I read a lot. And so when I read
You get a lot of inspiration from reading.
Reading is good because you get ideas from it.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm reading right now, I'm finishing, what's his face's book? Adam Grant's book. Anyway, I'll look it up.
Simply Said?
No, it's an older book. I can tell you it's on Audible. It is Hidden Potential. But I have a massive, like I did a 5-part series on last year I listened to 52 books. My goal is to do one a week.
Do you listen to them whilst being present?
Yeah. Because if I'm not, then I'll forget most of it. And I've done it where I like half listen and it's just not that good. No, I do it when I'm working out or in the car.
Okay.
And so it's usually when I'm working out or in the car or stretching now, or doing cardio or I'm in the sauna. Those are my spots. I'm behind though. My goal was 30 books this year and I'm like way behind. I've been more focused. My business has been like sucking the energy out of me. It's been really focused on that. Yeah, I'm in that season right now. So any other questions?
No. Questioned out.
Yeah.
This was incredible.
a fired up.
Yeah.
This was a fired up podcast.
That was so unexpected. Wow.
Goodness gracious. We covered a lot of bases.
Well, yeah, that's the longest podcast I've ever done.
Literally.
Same.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like, is this a 3-hour podcast? I was like, holy shit.
We definitely didn't book it that long, but
Oh, it's usually an hour.
Oh, really? Yeah.
No, well, hey, it was flowing, man. You don't want to stop that river.
good. You're such a storyteller.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh, you guys, I'm like, wow, you're going childhood now after this?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
I was like, all right, like.
I think you can split it in two.
Well, what's so funny is though I'm bringing I'm getting a mentor right now. 81-year-old guy. He's taking a bunch of companies public, and he has a thing. His name's Warren Rustan, and he's this like amazing guy. He played fucking professional basketball in like the 60s, and he was like a advisor to President Ford.
Yeah,
and then he took a bunch of companies public. He's this really impressive dude. 81 years old, and he mentors a ton of entrepreneurs. And I was like, God, and I interviewed him, and I was like, and I knew he mentored a couple people I know, and I was like, man, I really want Warren to mentor me. And so they send me this like list. It's called the 6 questions. Yeah. And so first question is like, tell me your life story, and I'm like, fuck. I was like, and so I was like, so I write his team. I'm like, hey, is it cool if I just do a podcast of my life story? Like I'm like, it's gonna take me like an hour. I'm like, writing that? I'm like, that's like a 2,000 word fucking book. I'm like, my life story is like, I mean, there's so much shit to tell you. I'm like, but by the way, like all we did was the last 4 years of my life and the first 20 years of my life.
Yeah.
We didn't do the middle.
No.
I didn't tell you any of the shit I did from building all my companies.
No.
So like, I only told you like 2/3 of my stuff and we were for 2.5 hours. So I could do this for like probably 10 hours, right?
It's 11:30.
That's
So
not an autobiography.
What's that?
Gonna have to do an autobiography.
I know. I my stories I'm not allowed to until I like do something that matters. And so So I know that's the wrong way of looking at it, but I don't think that that's valuable.
Well, I think if you make that impact, like Richard Branson,
Yeah.
and I think with all the kind of insights you've shared along each moment, I think it can help a lot of people by writing a biography, because you've got all these learnings and it all kind of loops back, and you are building to, I mean, the impact you've already made. It's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like I need to because I feel like I need to finish this chapter, and then it might make sense.
Maybe if you get knighted.
And yeah, you can pay for that. I have a couple friends that have been knighted. But so his 6th question. So the first question is that, and I was like, shit. So they said no. He wants you to write it, and I was like. So I was like, fuck, okay. Because I told him, I said, I'll get this back to you in like 2 days. And then I get it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so busy. I'm like, I can't write this. So I was like, fuck. They're like, well, you could just dictate it. I was like, but they don't know. Like they probably haven't had someone dictate before. When you dictate into like a script.
It's tough.
Well, first of all, it does not read the way it sounds when you say it, because there's no tone. So it's 2-dimensional versus 3-dimensional, and you have to rewrite it. And I'm like, well, that's not helpful. And I know this because that's how I wrote my book. I dictated it all and then I rewrote it all. And I'm like, it's not gonna read well. So I was like, fuck it. And so I do it. It takes me an hour and 20 minutes to like give him my life story. I then take the script out of my like podcast platform and I put it in ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And it's 14,000 words, and ChatGPT can only handle like 3,000 words at a time. So to break it into pieces, and I'm like, please copy edit and make more succinct. And so ChatGPT turns the story into like a 2,500 word story. But it fucks it up. I have to go in and rewrite certain parts, but I did get there. So I sent it to him and I wrote, by the way, this was all done through ChatGPT, and the rest are real answers, but it's a synopsis of my life. And then I wrote, because I don't love the way this reads, because it really leaves out a lot of good stories, here are the top 10 things I'm proud of in my life. And I gave me a list of the 10 things I'm proud of. That was cool.
That's really cool.
So we'll see. I have to schedule with him to go over my 6 questions.
Yeah, he was posted.
He's stud, though. 81, man.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Like, when I'm 81, I'm going to do what he's doing.
Yeah.
Just help entrepreneurs.
Well, folks, you heard it here first. Darius, thank you so much.
Thanks,
man. This is awesome.
Appreciate you.
Super cool.
Love you.
Greg Carlson, KB Connect, Kayleigh Bendall. Till next time, stay fired up.